Everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. We're at a city council meeting and it is Monday, June 15th, 2020. We'll start the meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury.
Here.
Evans. Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll have our invocation by Pastor Mark Johnson. And following the invocation, the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would you pray with me? Gracious God, we give you thanks for the gift of this day, Lord. And as we gather in this place, we just pray your blessing upon these servant leaders, Lord, those who have been elected to make decisions for how we live together in community, Lord. And just pray that you would give them a spirit of wisdom and discernment, Lord, so that they can make the best decisions for all of us to live together as one, Lord. And Lord, as we gather this evening, we recognize that we are living in a world filled with strife, Lord, that even as we gather here, there are those in our community and those around the world who are struggling with loss of income and loss of livelihood and struggling with illness and even loss of life, Lord. And I just pray that you would be in the midst of each of these individual situations, Lord, and that you would work for good in the midst of this evil virus that we're fighting, Lord. And Lord, we also have to recognize that even as we gather here, there are those in our streets in Rapid City, Lord, and the streets of our nation and around the world, Lord, who are protesting for justice and equality for all, Lord. And so I just pray your blessing upon our community, our nation, our world, Lord, that we would be able to come together as one and to love each other as you've called us, Lord, that we would love our brothers and sisters as we love ourselves, Lord. So just help us, Lord, to make the best decisions, to live into that reality, Lord, both in this day and the days to come. We just lift up this time, and we lift it up to you, Lord. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
And now the next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the agenda may be adopted as written or certain modifications can be made. Would there be a motion from Laura Armstrong for approval and a second by John Roberts? All in favor of approval of this agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. General public comment. It's a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken on these items since they're not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council. So we have one general public comment, speaker form from Molly Larson. Oh, and I should let all the speakers know tonight that you'll have 3 minutes to address the council, and you can watch these lights over here. They're just like traffic lights. So go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Molly Larson. Do you have to read your address? Is that a thing you have to do? Okay, sorry. Okay. I'm using my time today to explain what is often meant by the call to defund the police. It does not simply mean taking money away from the police budget, though that is the first step. Defunding means reallocating some of these funds to community organizations and initiatives that will reduce the situations that lead people to commit crimes and redefining what types of calls police respond to. The Rapid City 2020 budget allocated $15,865,653 to the police department, the largest category. Police budgets are so large because the police have taken the place in our society as the end-all, be-all solution to any problem. But if you stop and think how many situations actually require the response of an armed officer, you see that they would make up a small fraction of police interactions. And many situations are escalated by unwanted or unneeded police officer presence, no matter how much de-escalation training the officer may have. Furthermore, I doubt that a police officer wants to respond to a situation for which they are unqualified for any more than the person wants them to be there. For example, adults with mental illness account for 1 in 4 people killed in police encounters. An armed officer should not respond to an emotional or mental health crisis. Any officer that is committed to protecting and serving their community should be willing to allow others to reduce their workload to improve the quality of care our community members receive. Extraneous money should be reallocated to affordable housing, education, mental health services, or food services. Studies have shown that when people's basic needs are met, they are less likely to commit crime. Therefore, by prioritizing the response to their actions rather than their motivations, we perpetuate a cycle of poverty and incarceration without ever tackling the underlying issue. Crime rates don't decrease because quote-unquote criminals are in jail. They decrease when we recognize and protect the humanity and dignity of our citizens suffering from poverty, homelessness, and addiction. I understand that I've thrown a lot of information at you and that you already have a lot on your mind with this ongoing pandemic, but we must do better. We should not have to wait for a video of an undeniably horrific use of force, like the murder of George Floyd by Derek Chauvin, to happen in our community for us to make community changes that will make our community safer. We must work together to make a better community for all of our citizens. I urge you to consider how the priorities of our city, the balance of our budget, and the system of accountability for our police force could be renegotiated to better serve the people of Rapid City. Thank you.
Thank you. Now moving on to non-public hearing items, items 1 through 46. We'll open public comment on items 1 through 38. And I have 2 speaker requests on items 25 and 26. So we'll start first with Keegan Duffy. Did I pronounce that correctly? Keegan Duffy.
I heard through the grapevine that today the City Council is deciding whether or not to approve an $85,000 increase to the Rapid City Police Department. When I went online to search for the details of this motion and the step of the process at which it's in, I found the information to be quite inaccessible. South Dakota is ranked 47th in public access to information. The outdated and poorly designed city government website is just one item that the City Council should be prioritizing over additional vehicles and equipment for an already over-militarized government agency. I believe I speak for my generation when I demand an immediate reconsideration of public health and safety. What we're doing, 1, isn't effective against crime, and 2, is fundamentally rooted in white male supremacy. I have no doubt that my social media feed looks very different from yours, but if you haven't heard, the screams reverberating around the world right now are defund police. Black Lives Matter. You might think that these reverberations aren't felt here, that the protests will blow over after momentum dies down. You might feel like this community is white enough, conservative enough, unconscious enough, and isolated enough that this problem does not affect us, but you would be wrong. Our incarceration rate per 100,000 people here in South Dakota is nearly 200 people above the national average, which is already the highest in the world, at 698 per 100,000. In 2012, Black people made up about 2% of South Dakota's population, and yet for every 500 white people incarcerated, 4,600 Black people and nearly 3,000 Indigenous people are incarcerated. And you don't have to look very far to find that many of these prisoners being held in the state penitentiary and local jails are being used as slaves around the state, maintaining the gardens of the governor's mansion, cleaning up the highways, manufacturing cheap products to reduce the cost of incarceration by lowering taxes, and providing low or no cost labor to businesses in the community. By this point, if you have not understood that prison labor is slavery, that police officers are the gatekeepers of the prison slave industry, and that our legal apparatus disproportionately targets people of color, you are willfully ignorant. What you personally think about the police officers in your life does not change the fundamental purpose of policing. We are in the middle of several global health epidemics, ecological and economic collapse, and massive social uprising. If the goal is to maintain order, we must invest in this moment and not beat against it. We must change the way we educate, protect, and legislate. We want free asymptomatic testing for all. We want housing for all. We want food for all. Legislators not working toward these goals right now are wasting everyone's time. Not only do we not want more weapons and cruisers for the police department, we do not need them and we cannot afford them. With each new day, my timeline mourns the death of another black person at the hands of police and white supremacists. Oftentimes, the whole event is caught on video. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Oluwatoyin Salah, Dominique Fells, Rhea Minton, Tony McDade, Trayvon Martin, Philando Castile, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, Pamela Turner, Tamir Rice, Walter Scott, the list goes on and on and on. White people may not be responsible for the white supremacist system that our ancestors built, but we are responsible for unlearning what it taught us and for dismantling it immediately. Please do not move to increase funding for the Rapid City Police Department. Read the room. Black Lives Matter.
Okay, next will be Andrew Hoyt? Andrew Hewitt.
First of all, I'd like to reiterate the comments made by Molly and Keegan. I stand behind them, I agree with them, and I'd also like to reiterate that I know a lot of people in this community that agree with them as well. We are not just a vocal minority. There are many of us that feel this way. But I also wanted to express my feelings that putting more money towards buying police vehicles is a misuse of resources. Right now, we need to be putting the most resources into the people that need the most help, people who are in the most vulnerable positions. The absolute least we could do is put the $85,000 towards making sure the incarcerated members of our community have just as much ability to protect themselves from COVID-19 as everyone else. How can you justify spending money on cars when inmates have to pay $6 just to buy a bar of soap for their cell, when they don't have free and easy access to the resources needed to stay healthy and safe? If even one inmate loses their life to this virus when there was something we could have done to prevent it but didn't, then we are directly responsible. I understand that the police vehicles to be purchased will be used for the quality of life unit, and that these vehicles have been deemed necessary for the unit to function. Still, I disagree that this allocation of funds is more important or more necessary than the livelihood of our incarcerated community members, who are treated by our government as sub-citizens and subhuman. They deserve better, and we all deserve to live in a place where the money is used for the community. And regardless of popular opinion amongst elected officials in this state, the very idea of policing exists in opposition to community building. Our projected image of being an idyllic small-town community is nothing more than a facade if we don't put our resources towards the good of everyone, especially our most marginalized members. Thank you.
Thank you. And now on to consent items, items 1 through 38. These are items that may be approved with one vote, or if the council would like to pull any of these items for separate consideration, they may. And I'll call on Darla Drew.
Thank you. I'd like to pull item 23, and that's it for me.
Okay, Laura Armstrong.
I'd like to pull 25 and 26, please.
Okay, then can we have a motion to approve the consent items with the exception of 23, 25, and 26? Motion made by several people, I think. Lance made the motion, Greg made the second. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to item 23. Authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a professional service agreement with Burns and McDonald Engineering Company for solid waste master plan, project number 19-2561, in the amount of $698,680. Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to ask a couple of questions of Public Works Director Dale Tech, if I may.
Please.
There you are. Okay. I heard from a lot of constituents on this, as you probably heard from quite a few people too. I just don't know if this is the right time to be doing this. I know we've put it off for a couple of years. But can you please describe what the urgency is here?
I may defer to Dan Kuhn, the Assistant Public Works Director. We actually have a presentation. If you'd like us to give the very brief presentation, that might answer your questions.
That would be a great thing to have happen right now.
We'll go ahead and cue that up and get that going.
Hello, my name is Dan Kuhn. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director for the City of Rapid City. I'd like to give you a brief overview of the item on the agenda, number 23, the Solid Waste Master Plan. Just a little bit of information on the Solid Waste Division. The Solid Waste Division is one of the city's 3 enterprise funds in the Public Works Department. It is an enterprise fund along with the water and sewer utilities that we have. And as an enterprise fund, it is a self-supporting fund. It is supported by the fees that are collected for the services that are provided. There are no sales tax or property tax funds that go into the operation of the Solid Waste Division. So it's a self-supporting fund. The Solid Waste Division has about 20,700 residential accounts and approximately 500 commercial accounts. And those are formal accounts. Those don't include individuals who may come up to the solid waste facility once or twice a year to dispose of something. We are a regional facility. Our service area for the landfill and the material recovery facility stretches from Newell to Hot Springs to Pine Ridge and Badlands National Park to the east, and then Deadwood to the west. The facility has been there for some time. The landfill began operations at its current location in the mid-1960s. The material recovery facility began operations in 1996, and most of the machinery, components, and systems that were installed in 1996 are still operating in our original equipment. The co-compost facility, the other major operation out there, began operations in 2003. And all of, if not most of, the machinery, components, and systems are also the original equipment installed in 2003. Project goal is for the Solid Waste Master Plan is to build a foundation for the Solid Waste Division planning for the next 20 years. This is a very common practice for our other utilities, our water and sewer systems. And for whatever reason, we have not done this to the level that we need to do it for the Solid Waste Division. And so now we're in somewhat more of a reactive mode at our Solid Waste Division instead of a proactive mode. And so to the question of, is this something that we need to do now? It is something that has been put off, and we have the funding available, the need is there, and now is the time to start this process. This is about a year planning process. So to delay it beyond now means we're just become that much more behind in trying to have our Solid Waste Division be more proactive. The 2 key components are where are we at and where do we need to go? And I think a lot of this work will be where are we at? Where's our facility at right now? And then based on where we're at, where do we need to go long term with the solid waste facility so that we're making informed decisions, not reactive decisions. The key project components, there are 3 main operations elements at the solid waste facility. We have the landfill, the material recovery facility / co-compost operation, and the collections operation, which is the actual people out in the trucks every day picking up the garbage. What we'll do is one of the key things or first things we'll do is we'll evaluate the landfill airspace and how are we utilizing and managing that valuable asset, because we have a finite amount of airspace or place to put garbage within the landfill, and we need to use it to the best of our ability. We'll also evaluate each element's operations. We think we have a very good crew out there, and we operate as, I think, very efficiently. But there are probably, and in fact I know there are ways we can improve our operations to be more efficient and more cost effective. We'll evaluate each element's assets. As I said, a lot of those assets are original equipment. They're close to 25 years old. That type of equipment, they're reaching the end of their useful life. So we need to evaluate the assets determine what needs to be replaced, how it can be replaced or repaired. Our service area, we have not seen much change in our service area in the last few years, but we expect to evaluate that. A key thing that will come out of the asset evaluation will be development of a capital improvement plan or capital improvement needs. What do we need to replace, or what do we need to do to sustain long-term operations at that facility? And then we'll also do a cost of service analysis. And many of you council members were involved in the cost of service analysis we did for water and sewer. So it's what is it costing us to provide these services? Are the costs being allocated correctly within the different customer classes we have? And then how do we move forward from there to maintain this facility? And then one of the other things that we'll have towards the end is an implementation plan. Okay, we have these ideas, we have these needs. How are we going to implement this over the short and long term? Another element of the master planning effort will be the stakeholders group. After we do our data gathering and get the information available so that people can make informed decisions, we will ask members of the community, members of the council to be part of a stakeholders group. And we will look at where do we want the city's solid waste division, solid waste operations to go, both in the long term and the short term. Doesn't mean every idea will be immediately implemented, but will give us a feel for where are we going to go so that we can have a good planning document and we're not making short-term decisions that are getting in the way or not allowing us to do the long-term goals that the solid waste division should work towards. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions anybody may have.
Okay, I have a few. So, is this a contract already? Have we signed anything on this?
No, the request is to allow the mayor and finance officer to sign this contract.
And when did you get this estimate? I'm kind of taking from what you said it was a year ago?
No, we started the consultant selection process in January. We went through the process, we did interviews, we had 3 qualified firms, and we interviewed those firms in early March. And I will admit, I was somewhat like you. I thought, okay, how are we going to make this happen? And plus, we weren't real confident where our revenue is going to go for our enterprise funds. Well, we kind of sat on it for about a month or 2 and got comfortable, yes, we can, with the interaction required in this type of plan, make it work. And then also we found out that actually all of our enterprise funds are either at or above projected revenues for the last 3 months. And
That's very good. How long will the study take? Do you know?
a year.
A year. You said when you were talking just now that you know there are more cost-effective ways of doing things at the landfill right now, so why don't you implement those now?
I said I anticipate, okay, I know that there are ways that we can improve. What we're doing is we have a national firm that's going to bring those ideas and best management practices from other facilities across the nation.
Well, even if we have the money, $700,000 is a big chunk of change. Have you tried to negotiate with the firms to say, hey, you know, we're in this all together, and could you, knock off a couple $100,000 or maybe take a few bells and whistles out to save some money and put it somewhere else at this time?
We did reduce the scope of their original estimate and lowered the price. I believe right now for the scope of work that we're going to obtain, the price is fair. If we want to reduce the price, we'll also have to reduce the scope of services that they provide.
I get that, and that doesn't bother me right now because of the situation that we're in. And I know you have the money, you say you have the money for it, but we really don't know how long this is going to last. And so my inclination is to vote to deny this at this time. Thank you.
Okay.
Chad Lewis.
Oh, yeah, me. Sorry, I had to take my mask off so you can hear me, because I've been hearing a lot of complaints about when I wear it, you can't hear what I'm saying. So, Ms. Kuhn, could you please explain to me, I already know the answer to this question, but it's more for the public. The money that's going to pay for this study comes directly from the enterprise fund, correct?
That's correct.
So it's not like your property tax dollars are going to go pay for this?
That's correct.
Okay, so it's money that's generated by the landfill through fees and dumping fees and things like that. So
Correct.
for those of you who don't understand, enterprise funds are basically just businesses that are run by the city, essentially. Is that correct to say that, sir? Fair? Okay. So I guess I'm making that point because, folks, this is something that's pretty normal part of business. We hire outside consultants and we get hammered for it every time, but the fact of the matter is we want outside eyes to look at our projects, people who do this for a living. You know, we have gentlemen that are capable of making these decisions, but sometimes they have a prejudiced eye when it comes to our own particular situation. So you get an outside opinion and you get an expert opinion, and those are not cheap. That's the way the world works. And you do it all the time. You go hire a lawyer, you go hire any kind of consultant of any sort, and they're going to cost you money. But the fact of the matter is, it's not as simple as going and spending $700,000 and buying a bunch of land and sticking all your trash in it. You have to plan for that, especially with all the federal regulations and things that go on these days. So this is a very prudent thing to do, and it's been a long time since it's been done. And I think the last one helped us extend the life of the current landfill quite a bit. I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying that. You know, pre-planning, you have to think about these things ahead of time. So, you know, it goes out for bid. I assume we had three bidders. You said?
Well, it's a consultant selection process.
Yeah,
yes.
but it follows the rules. There's a set of guidelines it goes through, and so it comes back to whatever it is. So I guess my point is, I'm completely comfortable with this. This is part of the process. The landfill does this to ensure that they will be viable for the years to come, because you can't just suddenly start dumping trash in the ground, folks. I mean, everybody here should understand that by now. There's enough federal regulations out there, and we got to protect our water sources. That's kind of one of the biggest things we worry about in this part of the area. Well, any part of the country, anywhere, but particularly in this part of the country, we seem to pay great attention to that, and that's good. So I appreciate your efforts, and you know, the price is what the price is, but if it's not coming out of your tax dollars, if it's coming out of the landfill, you can't take that money that the landfill generates and put it into the general fund. Am I correct in saying that? Is that a fair thing to say as you take a drink of water? Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's fair to say that,
Okay.
yes.
So I understand that money could probably be used to replace money. We don't supplement the landfill, though. So anyway, I will be supporting this, and I thank you for your efforts. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chad. I'm going to ask a couple questions. Do we have a solid waste committee, a standing committee in the city?
If there is one, I'm not aware of it or have not met with them in a long time.
Well, I have a question for Ms. Armstrong then. Wasn't I assigned to a solid waste committee last July? Because I've been asking about meetings for this committee simply to get information about this and where we're headed. And for instance, I'm on the sustainability committee, and we've had 20 to 30 meetings. There is a committee.
During the committee's selection process or delegation process, I think I went to Mr. Tech, and I don't mean to kind of deflect over, but I think at one time, did we have a conversation that we used to have something like that, and it fell apart like most meetings or some committees do, because people do not attend, lack of leadership, those kinds of things. So I'm for it.
Well, I've been asking about meetings by that committee to several people up here who knew the process, because I was curious why there were none, because this is a big deal as far as I'm concerned, as far as the city goes. I personally understand the need for this study, and I was the one that actually made the motion to bring it forward for the vote tonight, because I understand the importance for the next 30, 40 years of the city. This has to be done right. The planning has to be complete. The planning has to be inclusive. The planning has to be forward-thinking. We have to have great planning. But then I've had a lot of acid reflux in the last 5 days. Since then, concerning this, I'm thinking, you know, I've been upset with some of the processes in this particular city government ever since I got on here. And I mentioned even on Tuesday what was the direction given to these people when we're going to give them a check for $700,000? And you sort of have to have some expectations for what you're going to get as a document. And I don't mean generic, it's going to be, we're going to tell you what to do, and you're going to get, I mean, we have to have some direction. We don't want them spending, if we're going to be a sustainable community, for instance, one that recycles, they shouldn't be wasting time and money coming up with something we're not going to adopt anyhow. So there have to be some parameters giving to these people we hire, even at this germinal stage when we go out. So the process has me upset. I support the project, but just on principle tonight, because it wasn't done the way it should be done with input at the beginning, I'm going to vote against this tonight. Thank you.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Bill, I'll answer your question. Last time I remember this committee actually sitting was probably 8 or 9 years ago. I was on that committee. So it's been a while, that's for sure. Dan, can I ask you a question? When's the last time we did a master plan?
There was a solid waste, was it called a master plan? It was a management plan or something that was done in 2010. However, it didn't look at many of the components that we want to look at here.
Okay, because I know that we've kind of pieced together one over the years. We've looked at this, we've looked at that, you know. So you really have no idea when the last one was done?
Prior to that, no.
Okay. And the reason I was asking that is because if it was done 12, 15 years ago, you know, and you're looking 20 years out, we should still be looking at that plan. And I've seen us do quite a few master plans where we'll do one and then we'll come in and we'll say this is for the next 30 or 40 years, even though the one that we did before that was 10 years ago. So that's one of the reasons I'm asking that question. I also agree with Darla Drew. I think that with everything that is going on right now and everything that's happened over the last 3 months, this is probably something we should do in another year or maybe 2 years. One of the things that I'm concerned about is about every master plan I've ever seen, or supplemental master plan or plan that takes part of one of them, is usually there's recommendations. I'm pretty sure I have not yet seen where they save us any money. I'm pretty sure that I've seen a lot of them that have recommended rate increases, like the water and the sewer study, and recommended purchasing a lot of different items that we may or may not need, you know, in the next few years. But just like I said, with everything going on, so much up in the air with sales tax, and, you know, I agree with Mr. Lewis that this isn't coming out of property tax, it's not coming out of sales tax. But, you know, there's a lot of people out there still hurting. There's a lot of people that aren't working full-time. There's a lot of people that have businesses that are really hurting bad right now. So, you know, if our sewer, or if our rates at the landfill go up because of this, that could be something that could be pretty detrimental on them. So I think this is something, I'm not going to vote for it tonight. You know, a year from now, 2 years from now, then I'd take a look at it, but tonight I'm not going to support it.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Kuhn did involve the council in this particular project. He invited me to sit in on the interviews of the 3 firms, the engineering firms, that gave a very professional and very impressive scope of work outline, what they were trying to do, what they were trying to accomplish. That's included in Exhibit A to the agenda item. It's called Scope of Professional Services for 2020 Solid Waste Master Plan. It goes through and itemizes the things that they're going to do and what they project the cost of doing that is. And we've got something tangible that we can put our hands on and review and look at. And I was astounded by the amount of work that goes into developing a plan like this, the gymnastics that have to be done around different federal regulations, and just the limited resources that we have right now. We're expecting a substantial increase in population, and I don't want to wait 2 years to decide oh, wow, here comes the B-21 bombers. Are we going to have those people take their garbage somewhere else? I mean, there's a lot more to this than just going out and burying garbage. And these engineers have come up with a plan to investigate what is the most efficient way for this to operate. I know that this is the right time for this investment. This is not just a cost of that doesn't reap any benefits, because this is an investment in our future and in our infrastructure that we desperately need, and we need it now, and we need to start working on it now and being proactive. Mr. Kuhn pointed out that a lot of the machinery that we have out there is over 20 years old, almost a quarter of a century old. We have limited resources, and we have to figure out how to deal with that, the airspace, everything that goes into this. The average person, I don't think, really understands this. I know I don't understand all of it, but I sure got an eye-opener when I listened to those presentations by those engineering firms. This is something that we desperately need in Rapid City, and I will definitely support this. Thank you.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple comments. My first comment, I guess, is I'm a little sad that our equipment is 20 to 25 years old and there hasn't been a plan along the way to have it replaced and upgraded. It seems to me like that would just be part of doing business. And I know it's not paid for by our, quote, tax dollars, but it's going to be paid for through the years, through your garbage rates. So it's still an impact on the citizens. I'm glad that you have the funding available to do the study. I will honestly say, when I watched it on Public Works the other day, I was totally against implementing it at this time. However, with all the population coming, with Ellsworth and our community growth, I think I'm going to support it tonight, but I just ask that you try to keep the cost rates down for the citizens however you can. I yield. Thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. I may be incorrect here, but I'm pretty certain each and every one of us, when we were running, had infrastructure as part of our campaign. And if we let a landfill go or the equipment break, it will not be good for all of Rapid City. I've missed paying my garbage bill on time, and I was inconvenienced for a week or so because I had extra garbage. That's just me. Now, if we have more people, if we have a broken landfill, and that impacts everybody, garbage is infrastructure. You think that COVID's an issue, this will be a health situation as well. We have to invest into our landfill. This is the basic, aside from water, maintaining the garbage, and the level of garbage for this area is essential. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may, I'll make a motion to approve this item.
Second by Lewis.
And retain the floor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason I'm supporting of this is because it's already in the budget. This is one of the items that the mayor has not cut from our $6 million from the budget. So I feel comfortable that we can handle this, unless I get different direction from our Chief Financial Officer, Pauline Sumption. The impressive part for me was the scope of the study, and the name of it is called the Professional Services Agreement. It's pretty comprehensive, what it's going to be talking about. And then what I'm also considering too is this is an investment, a small investment, in a very big operation that we have out there, a very multi-million-dollar business that we're operating. With all that money being at risk for not doing a study, I'd be disappointed that we do not take the proper precautions to invest in this enterprise. Everybody's mentioned some good reasons why we need to support this, and that is all the federal regulations that come down upon us. And then I've also run across so many landfill experts out there in the community too. Just use this money to purchase property next door. It isn't quite that simple just to buy up other property next door. Yeah, it can be done, but it's going to take a lot more than just that $700,000 to open up another cell, do another start up on that new cell and everything. So we just have to protect our investment, that multi-million-dollar investment out there that we have, and to protect the taxpayers of Rapid City. And I guess the other selling point for me is the stakeholders meetings that will be conducted as well. I'm very interested in what we're going to do with the alleys, because between Ward 2 and Ward 5, most of the alleys are in our areas. So with that in consideration, I believe we need some more information how to deal with our alleys. Because my experience is that the alleys are getting torn up by the garbage trucks. So that's another expense that we have to come up with. And if there's better ways to do the operation, let's take a look at it. Let's find something. And with that, Mayor, thank you. I yield.
And Bill Evans for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have one question. I'm curious, why did you include Mr. Stroman, with all of his lawyerly eloquence, in that particular meeting that this was decided, but not the person that had actually been included? I'm curious, is that your decision?
It wasn't my decision per se, but Mr. Tech reached out to me and asked if I could do it, and I actually had a conflict. And I believe Mr. Stroman was around me at that time, and I just said, hey, would you do me a favor and cover this? This is something that you ran on, infrastructure, going back to what I said earlier. And I do appreciate our directors reaching out when they do things like this. So I'm not playing favorites. It was just a matter of timing, lack of timing on my part.
My
not
feelings are really hurt, you know. I just feel like I've really been left out. But I got to tell you, I'm getting a little bit tired of sometimes these decisions and things being run off this dais and among our council as kind of junior high lunchroomy and not being at the right table at the right time and stuff. And, you know, as I look around this, how many people sitting up here actually have a degree in either engineering or architecture? Oh, wait. Me. I think I'd be a great asset to that. But of course, I'm the one that's left out. I'm just pointing out I have a problem with the process again because it's faulty. And this is like, what, the 20th time I brought this up at either meetings here or now. The process is not the way it should be done. Thank you.
Duly noted, it was not deliberate. It wasn't meant to be junior high. It was just time. I take responsibility for that.
Darla Drew for 1 minute.
Okay. First of all, I want you to understand, I'm not against this plan. I'm against it this year. I don't think it's appropriate. And I know we're going to get the B-21s, hopefully, you know, and that will go forward, and we'll need a lot more resources for our landfill. Secondly, I do understand that this money would be retained, any money saved would be retained by the solid waste department and the landfill. I wouldn't expect that to go into the general fund. I think they might need to use it for upcoming as yet unseen problems that will be caused by this COVID situation, and we don't know how long it's going to last. So I'm just saying that I'm for it. I'm just not for it right now. Thank you.
Chad Lewis.
I just want to thank you for not including me in that meeting. And also, I'd like to say that as far as unforeseen circumstances from the COVID situation, I think we've shown, as Mr. Kuhn was talking about, and the line of traffic out to the road constantly. The only traffic problem we're having right now is too much landfill trash coming in. We got to deal with it. So we got to plan ahead of time. Like Mr. Stroman was saying, the B-21's coming. A lot more people are coming this direction. So I don't think shortfall is going to be our biggest problem in cash right now. So that's just my personal opinion, but I'm going to be voting to support it. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion for approval on this item, and we'll go to roll call, please.
Lehman.
Aye.
Drury. Evans. Drew.
No.
Nordstrom.
Aye.
Roberts. Stroman. Armstrong. Lewis.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Now on to item 25, authorize staff to purchase Dodge Ram truck for $32,359 at state bid price to replace aging vehicle in police department fleet. Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. I first want to thank Molly, Keegan, and Andrew for showing up and speaking on this. I want to commend you young adults for coming here and being concerned about $85,000 of our city budget. Thank you. I would like to defer to Chief Jagras, if I may, to briefly explain the quality of life unit. I'm sure you got a brief overview of it. I'm pretty proud of this concept that we do because it is proactive and not just reactive to what is going on currently in our world. Chief Jagras?
Thank you, Laura. I also would join you in commending Molly, Keegan, and Andrew. I would take it a step further and challenge them to contact my office and schedule a time to come in and visit so we can give you a little education regarding some of the things that we are doing in a proactive way to help our most vulnerable population. Our quality of life unit is a proactive effort to essentially do boots on the ground social work. And as law enforcement officers, we've become the 24/7 caretaker at times for our homeless population. Along with our good friends at the fire department, we do a lot of caretaking with that population. We also are partners with the Care Campus. The Sheriff's Office runs that. Of course, the City Council supported the building acquisition for that with I think it was a $900,000 investment in that effort. So I will tell you also that I think one of the speakers mentioned that law enforcement lacks the expertise in dealing with mental health issues, and I'll just tell you that we're a 24/7, 365 workforce that has really taken it upon ourselves to excel in the area of providing service to our vulnerable homeless population that oftentimes has substance abuse issues, oftentimes mixed in with behavioral health or mental health issues. So we are we are the first agency in the region that committed to the One Mind campaign, which is a national campaign to best address mental health issues. There's 4 things that we had to pledge to do, and we have successfully done all 4 of them. Establish clearly defined and sustainable partnership with a community mental health organization, which is behavior management. Develop a model policy to implement police response to persons affected by mental illness, training and certifying sworn officers and selected non-sworn staff in mental health first aid training. We've done 100% of our staff in mental health first aid training or other equivalent mental health awareness courses, and provide crisis intervention team training. About 50% of our staff are CIT trained, crisis intervention team trained. So I would just say that it's kind of offensive that you would suggest that we're ill-equipped to deal with that population. I'll tell you that we've got a very compassionate staff. And if you want to see compassion, I would invite anybody in the community to volunteer for 1 8-hour shift at our Care Campus. And you will see some of the most compassionate law enforcement officers dealing with some of the most challenging sets of circumstances. And then truly the care campus staff, they are the front line. They are doing a very challenging job. I've put that offer out there before. Nobody's ever taken me up on it. It's difficult work. But I'll just say that I think that we are being painted with a wide brush here, and we're actually being stereotyped due to some national emotion that I think that we should do better here in terms of the way that we treat each other and respect each other, and really respect all the compassionate men and women that work 24/7. Last week, one shift of our officers worked a 16-hour day. One of those young ladies that was working as a police officer, she's got 2 kids at home. Her husband is deployed to South Korea, and I think many people look at her as a badge, not as a human being. So, and I do want to correct some false narrative. One of the speakers suggested that it was $6 for a bar of soap. I'll tell you, at the Pennington County Jail, soap is free. It is liquid soap. All basic hygiene items are provided free of charge to the inmates. If they do choose to upgrade and want the bar of soap, it is $2. So I think it's ironic. We're dealing with a false narrative right here over a bar of soap. But at the core, there's so much false information out there. And I'd encourage you, I think that if you're going to speak to a legislative body such as this, make sure your facts are correct. On to the vehicles. So we're asking for 2 unmarked vehicles, 1 truck. The reason for the truck is, I think you all know that we have homeless individuals in our community that are in wheelchairs. Oftentimes we have to tie up an ambulance to assist us with a transport, which really isn't the proper use of an ambulance. We need the truck to care for our homeless individuals that are in wheelchairs. Just in this past week, one of the few individuals that is homeless in a wheelchair was COVID positive. We have taken care of him along with the staff at the Care Campus and Monument Health, and we will continue to care for him. I don't see any other volunteer groups out caring for him to the level that we do. I'd ask that the City Council avoid the fray of this current defund police, broad brush stereotyping of our workforce in a negative manner. And I commit to you that we've got one of the most compassionate organizations that does difficult work in our community, and we will continue to sustain throughout the COVID crisis. We will continue to invite people in, like I just did right now, to learn more about what we're doing. We will also listen to any recommendations or suggestions. And more importantly, we will take volunteers that are sincere in making a difference to help us serve that challenging population. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, John Roberts.
Thank you, Chief. You might as well get your butt back up there. I'm going to ask you a question. But first, I want to make the motion to approve this. So it's my understanding this is budgeted, because there was another misconception out there that we are adding to the police department budget for these vehicles.
So yeah, if you look at item number 39, that's the adjustments to the 2020 budget.
Yes.
We're actually taking an $800,000 reduction, of which we cut our vehicle budget in half for this calendar year. So using the COVID grant is a very appropriate use of the vehicles that we're talking about. I just mentioned the individual that we transported last week. The Department of Justice put out the COVID-related supplemental funding grant nationwide, and essentially they told us the amount we were going to receive if we applied before we even applied, and it's broad on purpose. It's the federal government's effort to ensure that police departments are able to sustain the COVID impact. And like I said, the COVID situation isn't over in South Dakota. It's certainly very manageable as we've seen, but our police officers are going to continue to interact with people that are.
No, absolutely, and we know that, and I appreciate everything you do. I was on the council when we bought the very first truck, I believe, for that specific reason, because we had a couple of homeless people in our community that had issues with wheelchairs. Anyway, I do want to tell you thank you for the good job you're doing, and this is something that we need. The police department's cut almost $1 million out of their budget this year, and that has been difficult for you. And anyway, thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. So, first of all, to Ms. Duffy, that she brought up the website was very hard to navigate. And Chief Jaggeris, could you hang here for just a second? That concerns me. So, you know, I hope we can look into that and find out, you know, why the information that you were looking for was not available. We just redesigned it like 2 or 3 years ago, and I would just hope it's working to the benefit of our citizens. So that concerned me to hear that. So one of the, okay, and that's it for that, to Chief Jaggeris now. So one of the things you do with these vehicles is you take people right now, for the next few days anyway, to the Civic Center, Care Center right there for the COVID.
Depending on circumstance, I'll tell you, as you know, we were part of the behind-the-scenes effort to stand up the COVID sheltering facility. One of the barriers that we ran into was lack of transport equipment or organization that was willing to do transport. So collectively, between Sheriff's Office, Police Department, Monument Health Security staff, and the Oyate Healthcare staff, we're getting it done.
Wow, that's really a nice collective effort, so I really appreciate that. And that will end on June 26th, is that correct?
I don't have an update this week. There is discussion of a potential extension, but I don't have the answer to that for you right now.
I could support that. Okay. Thank you for that. That's it for that. And then also, just as a compassionate community, we also supported with a lot of money the One Heart Center, which is going to come online sometime this year, which will help bring homeless people out of homelessness when they fall through the cracks, when they can't make their rent and they end up in a car and those kinds of things, but they're good people that just haven't had the right breaks. The One Heart Center is going to be there for them. There will be a lot of collective groups that help these people, along with how to get dressed for your interview. The Hope Center, I think, will be there as well. It's going to be a group where you can go and get all your services in one place. And if you do get a job interview, there's a child care center there for your child. So we are working on being a compassionate community. Are we perfect? No. But I think we have done a lot to maneuver ourselves into being the kind of community we all want to be. Pauline, I have a quick question for you because I don't remember right now. How much did we actually give to the One Heart Center as vision funds?
We gave them $5 million to help purchase that property, and then the property is actually in the city's name. So
Okay.
we got a $10 million asset for a $5 million investment.
Which is awesome, and also it does good things. I mean, and that's something we don't always get to do here. We end up talking about landfills, which a lot of people think are really good things, but this is where my concern is for the people. And so to hear that we gave them $5 million should give you some solace that we actually do care about what's going on out there, and we do care with their mental health and as well as their physical health, and for the families that have just fallen through the cracks of some of society's help, and they don't get it, and then they end up in their cars. And we don't want to see kids, and we hear about the children that are not in schools, or that are in our schools, that are living at the mission or in their cars or wherever they can. So we're trying. So anyway, just thank you again for being here. I love to see young people that want to actually participate. It's rare, so thank you. I yield.
Bill Evans.
Thank you. I just wanted to also reinforce what Darla said. She brought up so many good points. I have found in the year that I've been sitting up here that the community does truly attempt to be a very well-balanced and inclusive community that addresses these things and is not ignoring them, at least for the most part. I would also like to thank the chief, who I think has done I've told him on numerous occasions how impressed I've been over the last year with his demeanor and his leadership and everything, and his assistant that exhibits the same traits. I would even go so far as to say that perhaps the situation in Minneapolis, had we had our police addressing that, maybe this worldwide event may not be taking place. So I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done, and tell you that it's a very complex issue and it's not going to go away, but I believe that as a community we have certainly attempted to accommodate and be inclusive as many of these factors as Darla brought up. So thank you for all your work.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief probably disappeared for his own good, right? Oh, there he is. You don't have to get up. I just making sure we're replacing 4 vehicles with 2, right? Is that correct?
4 with 3.
4 with 3, okay. So that's, to me, is less vehicles, less maintenance, less gas. I mean, and it's for the quality of life unit like we talked about ad nauseum up here now, which obviously does a lot of really good work. I know a few of those officers, and they obviously have to care about the job in order to do that. You don't just volunteer to go down and deal with the situations they have to deal with a lot of times. So I would also remind people when they're talking about defunding the police and diverting to other things. I understand that the real conversation is probably about putting that money into other situations, not taking the money away from the cops as much as is about social programs, and I do completely get that. But one thing we do very well in this town, and I'm very proud of it, being part of it, but it's been mostly led by Mr. Mayor, who turned me on when he was the police chief, is we spend a lot of money on Wavy, which there is no way we could do that job. We could not duplicate that as a government facility without giving them the way what they make it work is amazing. So those are the kind of things I think that are proactive that can be really good for the community, but I don't think we need to necessarily be attacking our law enforcement. They're doing the best they can, and I think we are very unfortunate to live where we live and have the kind of commitment we do to and sensitivity we do. I know it's obviously not perfect, and there's people out there that would disagree with me, but I think that we do a really good job of taking care of people. So, and this is another one of those things. These vehicles are not going to be used to go out, and harass people. They're out there to help people that need the most vulnerable people. So that's a good investment, and I think it's something we should definitely support. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to applaud all of our council members for the comments they've made so far, because everything that they've said is well-studied, well-versed, and you folks did an excellent job about. So I'm not going to try to repeat everything that you said, because I believe everything that you have said is coming from the heart. Chief Jagers, a couple of questions for you. First of all, thank you for the policy that was sent to me about the use of the different, such as an event takes place, and the policy that you use. Is that because of, or came about because of your certification that you have? I know that's one thing we don't hear too much about, the police department being certified in some category, and forgive me, I forget what it's called.
So forgive me, I'm not following your question. I think I had a staff member forward some policy to you.
Yes, and it was very comprehensive, well put together, and it told us about whatever happens when an incident happens with an officer and how the process goes forward.
Okay, sure. So our public complaint policy, which is publicly available online on our webpage, and I think that's what you're referring to. When somebody makes a complaint, for example, of excessive force.
Yes.
So I think just the one thing that is at the foundation of our progressive nature as an organization is our accreditation certification. That is a process where we purposefully self-impose a group of expert outside eyes onto our organization every few years to review our policy in its entirety and to make sure that we haven't fallen behind on any needed changes that should be occurring, because as you know, we're an evolving profession, just like many other professions out there.
That's the word I was looking for, is the accreditation. And it's one thing that we don't brag too much about, but I think at this time it's worthwhile mentioning that anybody that wants to come down and see how your operation works, even do a ride-along. I've had that opportunity on a few occasions, perhaps even a couple of occasions that different officers showed me around and how it works. So I appreciate that, and it was very helpful, very informative. So the young people that are in the audience tonight, I would invite you to go along for those ride-alongs. You can see firsthand what is taking place within our department. I was totally amazed, blown away, in fact, how those officers treated with respect of the citizens, not just because I was there, but because that's their job and how they were trained. And because of this accreditation process, that's how they take their job that seriously. So as far as defunding that, and the chief made a good comments at last Legal and Finance Committee meeting, I believe it was, about how you are concerned about defunding the police department and wanted to make sure that we understood if we're going to do that and go in that direction, that we augment or supplement their current things that have been mentioned, such you have provided us information about mental health. I think that's one of the biggest issues that's going to come about within this city, and our community is going to have to start facing that next and very soon. So I applaud you and your department and what you're doing and making those invitations and invites available to the public. So thank you, Chief.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor is for approval of item 25. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 26, authorize staff to purchase 2 Jeep Grand Cherokees for a total of $52,672 at state bid price to replace aging vehicles at the police department fleet. Motion to approve Lehman, second Drury. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And that takes us to the end of our consent items. Non-consent items 39 through 46. We'll open public comment on those items. And we have a few speaker requests. And so for the speakers, just as a reminder, you have 3 minutes. You can watch these lights up here. We'll start on item number 43 with Kevin Beshara.
Good evening to you all. I'm here tonight to deliver 3 points. Now is the time to start saving our vibrant economy and beautiful city. I, Kevin Beshara, owner-operator of Colonial House Restaurant and Bar, have and will continue to prove myself a health-conscious business owner. This will take all of us working together. I love the city. I was born in it. I have lived and toiled in it, and I intend to retire in it. The success, or rather, the survival of my business, as well as others, depends on your vote. Your vote has the power to transform the economic success of Rapid City. All our local businesses, large or small, independent or corporate, are struggling. And if they are not allowed to operate at full capacity, this will eventually cause a number of local businesses to fail, including mine. I will never lie to a guest by telling them my restaurant is 100% safe. However, I have done everything in my power to make my restaurant as safeguarded as possible. I've closely maintained the CDC and local guidelines, and have even adopted some practices and procedures of my own, including a disinfectant sprayer system. My willingness to comply remains resolute. If you vote tonight, allowing us to open back up to 100%, I fully intend to continue with these procedures and do my part to assure public safety. My goal is to continue to prove to my community that I have their best interests at heart while still being able to operate. It takes strong leadership and a concerted team effort to assure a community's success. I'm but just one man, albeit with many opinions and ideas, but as a business owner of 39 years, I found that I perform much better when other businesses are competing with me, as that motivates me to be the best I am. With that said, I appreciate that it's going to take the greater community coming together to keep the city flourishing. Excitement for Rapid City still Excitement for Rapid City's future still abounds. We continue to see growth. The Monument Civic Center holds much promise, and tourism continues to show economic potential for us all. But unless we act decisively, we risk diminishing what keeps our community so beautiful and enriched. I'm here tonight, humbly, respectfully, to ask you, Mayor, council members, to recognize with me that resuming normal economic activities will be safe. Please join me going out to dine at a local restaurant, shop at a local store, or use Rapid Ride. I want to thank you for your leadership you have shown during this challenging time as we navigate this uncharted path. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. And next is Jordan Mason.
Mayor and Council, it's good to join you again. It's been a while. Name's Jordan Mason. Address is 6503 Susan Street, Rapid City, South Dakota. I'm here today to touch base on, obviously, the city's reaction to the COVID-19 epidemic. And I wanted to bring to light something that I think has been overlooked, and it's important. This last year, obviously, many of you that know me personally, I spent a lot of time in Pierre, our state capital. And I would like to reiterate the words of our governor, Kristi Noem, and the path that she's taken in response to this. And I also want to bring to your attention a discussion that was made public and on public record in regards to Senate Bill 191, which was an act to provide emergency authority to counties, community improvement districts, and I want to emphasize this, and municipalities in the event of a public health crisis and to declare an emergency. That bill failed. And more importantly, there was a discussion about the legal authority of specifically the city of Rapid City and the actions that were taken. I think today is an important day because you have an opportunity to correct a wrong. And so I would encourage you to not rehash the past, but to take the time to research what authority you have without evidence to shut down people's livelihoods, take away their business, and without a narrowly tailored governmental interest, and I look at our city attorney as I say this, to invoke such regulations as may be construed in the words of Representative John Hansen during the discussion of SB 191 to take their property under regulatory taking. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your decision tonight.
Okay, next is Justin Henrichsen. Justin here? Benjamin Klinkle. Oh, okay. All right, then on item 45, Lyle Tolsma.
Thank you, Mayor, council people. I'm Lyle Tolsma from Black Hills Sports. We had our meeting today for item number 45 for Fitzgerald Stadium. We know that it's come in, the two bids that we've had come in were both over the budget. We've been in talks with them as well as working with the city, Rod Johnson over here, the engineer. We've done our due diligence as well as Rod and his committee, and we support where we're at, and we would hope that you would give us the recommendation that we go forward with the new stadium. That, I'm open for questions.
Okay. All right, that's all the speaker requests we have. We'll take up that item in a few minutes, and they might have questions then. We'll close the public comment period, and then we'll start with ordinances. Item 39. Approve second reading and recommendation of Ordinance 6429 regarding supplemental appropriation number 3 for 2020. Motion to approve, Lewis, second by Armstrong. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 40, approve first reading of Ordinance 6428, an ordinance to clarify the retail sales component for microbreweries as conditional uses in the light industrial district by amending section 17.22 030 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion to approve by Drury, second by Armstrong. We'll go to Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of questions for Joel Landine, if I could.
Yes.
So as I understand this ordinance, it would prohibit breweries from making more than 20% of their product available as retail. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct, but I haven't been involved with the drafting of this. I would defer to the planning staff to answer the questions on this.
All right, okay, thank you. If I could ask Ken that, please.
Your understanding is correct. 20% is intended to make it so that this is a subsidiary activity in the conditional use permit arena for this particular zone, so that a microbrewery is not intended to be the main function of a business here with on-sale liquor, but that it is more of a manufacturing facility in the industrial zone. But the 20% will allow for on-sale as a subsidiary activity in this zone.
Okay, so I know that some of the breweries sell their product to other outlets. Does that prohibit that kind of sale? I mean, because I go somewhere and I can see Crow Peak, I can see different kinds of brewery beer being sold other places. Does that also preclude that?
Wholesale and retail is certainly permitted. We're talking about the on-sale consumption on site. That's what would be limited.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand this. So this is limiting the amount of on-site consumption? I don't get that. I'm not understanding this then.
Point of clarity then would be that the 20% goes to the area of the building where they can then conduct on-sale liquor uses. We didn't want it to become another general commercial bar. In light industrial, it's the manufacturing that's the primary use, but the typical sampling that's allowed by state law under that microbrewery was so limiting. And we acknowledge that there may be room to allow them to come in up to 20% of the square footage of the overall facility and bring a sit-down environment, yet it wouldn't compete with our commercial corridor where we see most of our on-sale liquor.
Okay, I don't think I understood this completely. So they already have a retail license, so they can sell as much product as they want. What you're limiting here is the amount of room they get to have a bar situation?
Correct. It's the on-site consumption. That area, that's the 20% limitation. Is if you've got a 1,500 square foot building that they're doing microbrewery in, we want it to primarily be a manufacturing facility that you would find in the light industrial corridor. But up to 20%, they could have an area where people who are there touring the microbrewery, that's a big fad these days, they can sit down. It's not just a small stand-up tasting area. It then allows them to have tables and create an environment where people can sit down, learn more about the product, and visit with each other. But yet it's not the full-fledged bar. If there wasn't a limitation, then who's to say that it would go from being a manufacturing facility in light industrial to more of an entertainment facility, which is appropriate in general commercial. So there was kind of a compromise, a give and take on that.
And the breweries are in favor of this? They agree that this is a good, okay, all right. If the businesses like it, then I can go ahead and say this is fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. And just maybe, hopefully to clarify a little bit, this was also brought up at South Dakota Municipal League in their discussions. And what I recall of the story that I heard, it wasn't Rapid City, but it was another city that was involved in this. Basically, the microbrewery was on one side of the wall, had this big opening door that a person could walk through and go into a normal, regular establishment. Well, this microbrewery had to sell that wholesale to a merchant that took that merchandise and sold it to the retail business. And essentially what this does is takes the middle person out of that process. So it allows the microbrewery to have some use of their product within their facility. So that's the short version of that discussion. It was quite lengthy and quite complicated, but essentially it's that wall, going through that wall or going through that door, and this allows that process.
So are you mansplaining right now, Richie?
Is that what it's called? Is that what it's called?
Trying to help me understand, thank you.
Yeah. I'll do whatever it takes.
Okay, item 40, we have a motion to approve. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 41, first reading ordinance 6422, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by City of Rapid City for a rezoning request from office commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located north of the intersection of East Stoomer Road and Shelby Avenue. Motion approved by Drew. Second by Drury. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 42, first reading ordinance 6427, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by the City of Rapid City for a rezoning request from office commercial district to high density residential district for property generally described as being located at 726 South Street. Motion to approve by Drew and second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Legal finance items, 43. Approve resolution number 2020-056. An emergency resolution extending resolution number 2020-034. Open it up for discussion. Somebody has to be first. John Roberts.
Just give me 1 second. I want to make a motion, but I want to make sure that I am looking at the right one. I believe it's the alternate to the resolution where the business owners have the right to run and maintain their own businesses. Am I correct on that one?
Let's have Joel Landine explain the whole alternative resolution thing.
Thank you, Mayor. Alderman Roberts, that would be correct. The original resolution that was linked continues the current regulations for another, it would actually be a 3-week period because of the way the meeting dates line up. But the alternative resolution that's linked basically converts the current regulations to recommendations, so they would not be legally enforceable. So while we would still encourage businesses to follow CDC guidelines and engage and practice social distancing, there wouldn't be a city requirement to do so. So we wouldn't be in the enforcement business if you adopt the alternative resolution.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to make a motion to adopt that alternative resolution. Can I have the floor for just one?
Yes. Who was second? Lance?
Everyone.
Go ahead.
Anyway, this has been very difficult the last few months. It's been very difficult on a lot of businesses in Rapid City. It's been very difficult, on a lot of people in general. It's been very difficult on a lot of people that have got this virus, got sick, and unfortunately, quite a few people have died. But, I don't think that government should be in the business of shutting businesses down. I think businesses in general can police themselves. If they don't police themselves, especially in something like what happened the last few months, they would be out of business. People would put them out of business. If there had been a bar that was open during the worst of this crisis, and there was 40 or 50 people or 100 people in there, I guarantee you there'd have been 200 people outside protesting it. Or word of mouth would have went around and you know, caused severe damage to their businesses. I think we're at a point now where this is the intelligent, smart thing to do. I think that the businesses should have the ability to be able to run their businesses in a safe manner that they think is the safe manner. I don't think the government should be standing over the top of them with a stick saying, you know, this is what you need to do, this is what you have to do. Let them police themselves. Let the people that want to go to these businesses, go to these businesses. The people that don't want to go to these businesses don't have to. The people that are concerned can stay away from them, or they can stay home. But like I said, and I said this from the very beginning, I don't believe government has the right to or should step in and shut down businesses. So anyway, thank you very much.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment to the resolution to insert a new section 4 that would read, should a complaint arise, the city will inform the business and recommend corrective action, and then change section 4 to section 5.
Okay, we have a substitute motion to alter the text of the alternate resolution. See any problem with that, Mr. Landine?
No, I think the council can amend the resolution. Might take some work on my part after the meeting concludes if you were to approve that, to get it drafted quick so that it can be published, but I think you can make alterations.
Okay, so we had a motion to add text to the resolution that says, in the event of a complaint, the city will notify the business and recommend corrective action.
Just recommend, yes. And if I get a second, I'd like to elaborate.
Second by Evans. Okay, is that it?
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that we're missing in the entire action from the South Dakota Department of Health is that we don't have tracking and tracing. What I'd like to see is, and let me back up a little bit, is that I want to applaud all the business people here that are coming forward to make this recommendation for supporting this resolution, because once we go through our budgeting process, I call it review, rebalance, and that's what we're doing tonight as well, is rebalancing our budget. But then we're going to need your help to do a reload, a rebound for our businesses. And so my concern is that if the businesses start seeing more of this pandemic arise at your business, and we've already seen it happen in some of the local businesses right now, and especially in our restaurant businesses. I don't want to see you folks go by the way that happened to a Mexican restaurant here in Rapid City that was virtually boycotted because of Legionnaire's disease many years ago. I don't want to see that happening to our local businesses. So I want to encourage you to do what you can to follow all of these recommendations that are in this resolution. It's only a should for the recommendations. It's not shall, whereas the other original resolution is a shall. So that where I'm at right now is that if somebody does make a complaint of some kind, and somebody will make a complaint to the city of Rapid City, we'd like to take that opportunity so that we can come and help you make those corrective actions. If it is an issue, I keep hearing so many stories about the people not wearing masks, not properly sanitizing, etc. So for me, it winds up and goes back to something we call the P3s, public-private partnerships. And you guys are part of the private sector that we need your help on all of this. And we want to help you do the best you can for your business. But my concern, again, is if something breaks out like the Legionnaire's disease that did many years ago, it's going to be big damage to your business or businesses here in Rapid City, and I don't want to see that happening. There's some other businesses that were boycotted for other reasons, but they did nothing wrong on their own, and then all of a sudden they were boycotted by the public, and I don't want to see that happening. So that's the reason why I wanted to work in partnership with the businesses here, and it's just 8% of the businesses that are being affected here in Rapid City under those rules and guidelines and recommendations. And so we want to do the best we can to work in partnership with you rather than being an adversary. Let's work together. Thank you, Mayor. I yield.
Bill Evans.
I'd like to reinforce what Alderman Nordstrom just said. This responsibility thing is going to be important. You know, the old adage, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. Well, you can give the people the data, and you can't make them think. And that's what we're up against with such low compliance on what we've been attempting to do so far. It's really not having much effect. And this particular device is the one thing that seems to make a difference. And all you have to do is, and I spent this afternoon doing a little research, Nebraska, no mask law. Cases going up. Kansas, no mask law. Cases going up. Oklahoma, going up. You go right around that. But Colorado, where if you go into Denver without a mask on, they're going to arrest you and fine you $1,000. And if you go into Boulder, it's $5,000. Okay? So Colorado's rate is going down. So it does make a difference. And I watched Mr. Bashar out there say, you know, he's really invested in things like this. It does make a difference. I'm supporting his business. I'm not supporting the businesses that don't do this. I see people around the room claiming this is such a great right. Well, I got all kinds of news for you. You know, drunk driving wasn't a big deal until the law was passed making it really, really bad to be intoxicated. And it wasn't passed to protect you from killing yourself. It was mainly passed for you not to run over my kid. And the same with the smoking law that went through a few years ago. It's really not to keep you from killing yourself with lung cancer. It's to prevent you from giving me lung cancer. And these kind of rules we put into place have to do with that. You know, I can't keep you from doing what you want to do. But something like this can keep you from making me sick. And that's what I'm concerned about. And there's you know, proof that shows this works. So I'd ask you to be a little more supportive and make that outward sign that this is as important to you as you say it is. Wear the mask, use it in your business, and be the kind of business people say, go over there, it's safe to go. Thank you.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was speaking just on this ordinance or this particular motion, not on the first motion. I would not be supporting this particular motion simply because the language does not exist at this point. It had to be made up by Mr. Landine after the meeting, and when the public wouldn't know exactly what it was we were voting on. We wouldn't even know exactly what it was we were voting on other than just a suggestion. And not that I have any problem with the suggestion, although I don't think telling on your neighbor is going to do any good at this point. So I will not be voting in support of this motion just because we don't even know what we're voting on exactly. Thank you.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Mr. Lewis, but for a different reason, because people already have the ability to call code enforcement if they feel like things aren't right in a restaurant or business and ask them to comply with the data, the rules. So I think it's unneeded to have it in there because we already have code enforcement that can do that job. I also believe that I would support the original motion to remove the long arm of the law. I know we have a lot of visitors coming and a lot of people are upset about that, but we are a tourist community. We're not a industry that does much else other than tourism and agriculture, and we need to support it. People know by now what all the requirements are to wear the mask, wash your hands, you know, to clean the surfaces down. They know it. We can't make them do it. Just like Mr. Evans said, we can pass drinking and driving laws, but we can't. There's still people out there that do it. We can ask people not to smoke, but people still smoke, so they still have that personal freedom to do what they want to do. And I just think with the CDC guidelines in place, I've seen wonderful things from the Colonial House, we've heard wonderful things from the Firehouse. You know, they want to thrive. This is their time of year to earn the bulk of what they earn throughout the year. And I hate to be the one that impedes that. I will still stand by my original vote, which was to lock things down to get the hospital ready. But they're ready. And the virus is never going, we're going to live with the virus forever and ever and ever. It's never going to away. We have to learn to live with it. And I think the people that are scared or have compromised immune systems are working around it. They're staying home, they're shopping with their masks on, they're wiping things down, they're using their hand sanitizer. I just think the public is already informed and knows how to behave. Now you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. First, what I want to do is commend all the businesses that really stepped up, changed their business model, modified what they had to do, really thought outside of the box. Colonial House, Tally's, Himalayan Kitchen, Curry, Masala, Culver's, you really did an outstanding job. I sacrificed my own business throughout this. I have not seen a patient since mid-March. So I feel it too. I am against lifting the restrictions. Me aside, the majority, the overwhelming majority of my constituents in Ward 5 want these to be in place still. And that's what I'm representing. I do, and I have to explain to you why I'm against this. First and foremost, we are using tests that are not FDA approved. They have an emergency authorization use, but they're not approved. In fact, the manufacturers of these tests admit that there is a 47% false negative. So they're touting these numbers of 52,000 negatives, but the manufacturers of these un-FDA approved tests are saying that they are false negatives. We have people that have taken this and have this false sense of security that they're fine and have not been exposed, but they very well may have been. The second reason I can't get behind this is we have not reached our peak yet. We're still charging up that hill. I know we have the foot soldiers for the reinforcements, but I don't feel comfortable dumping this on the hospital, ready or not. Also, we have 3 major events coming up. We have the 4th of July, we have the rally, and we have the Central States Fair. We're going to have spike after spike after spike. How good is that for business? The problem with should, or going by recommendations, we should drink 8 glasses of water every day. We should get 8 hours of sleep every day. We should eat 5 to 7 vegetables every day. Our doctor tells us we shouldn't smoke. How many people follow these recommendations? Some do, some don't. I don't think we ever had that big stick that we're talking about. We're asking people to follow these guidelines. Majority of us are washing our hands and wearing the mask and doing whatever. But just last week, I was ridiculed twice for wearing a mask. Psst, look at her. Yeah, I'm doing this for you. Not everybody's doing this. I wish they would. We would all get through this together better. And if we're going to let people regulate themselves, why do we have the police department? Mr. Evans mentioned, why do we have these DUI laws? People shouldn't be drinking and driving, but they do. Why do we have the lines in our road, Mr. Tech? So they don't cross over, so they know how to drive. Not everybody can do this. That was it. It's not a power struggle. We're not trying to be mean and authoritarian. This is a pandemic. We're doing our best to help all of us. I think if we lift these restrictions, I think it's insulting to our healthcare workers on the front lines. I worry about our first responders who literally risk their lives with every call of service that they go on. They can be potentially exposed. I think it's disrespectful to our veterans that we say every Memorial Day and 4th of July and Veterans Day how much we love them and value them. I think it's offensive to our elders. What about our hospitality staff, our tourists? This affects all of our children, our teachers, all of our essential workers. It affects everyone. I see the writing on the walls. I know people are tired of the phone calls and the emails, but just a little bit longer. If we could just get over the peak, we're not quite there yet. Just think about that. Just a little more time. We've put in so much effort, so much time. Just a little while longer. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you. I think I'd like to move that we go back to the original motion as made by John Roberts. If I could get a second.
We need to defeat this motion, and then we can go back
You have to
the
defeat it first?
substitute motion.
Okay.
Would you like to say anything else?
Yeah, just a couple things. I think we've accomplished what we wanted to. You know, when we shut down things initially, we've talked about this before, you know, the facts we're looking at were very different. The fear factor was very high by shutting the businesses down, and they complied, and I thank you for that. And I think we gave the hospital time to get ready, and they're ready. So I think we accomplished that. I think we slowed things a little bit, and I think that's another thing that we wanted to do with this. And we also gave time for people to understand what the CDC regulations are and what they should be doing to protect themselves and others. So I think we've accomplished our major goals, and I think it's time to just go ahead and let the business owners decide how they'd like to run their businesses. Thank you.
John Roberts.
There's probably nobody else in the queue, but I'll call the question.
Okay, anyone object to calling the question on this motion? Not, we'll go to a vote. Just a reminder, the motion on the table is the alternative resolution as printed on the agenda, plus the Richie Nordstrom amendment of calling the city for complaint and friendly contact. Let's go to roll call on this one.
Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong, Lewis, Lehman, Drury, Evans, Drew, Nordstrom. Motion fails.
Okay. Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just made a point of interest for the public so that everyone knows that this resolution did not go through committee. So we never had an opportunity to really examine it at committee level. So that's another reason why I'm voting no on this resolution, because we did not get to take a look at it and have it explained to us. Thank you, Mayor.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, start off by saying this. I actually have two members of my extended family are currently have COVID, and one's doing better than the other. But that being said, you know, March 13th, the governor closed the schools. And then around March 18th or so, California closed down the state. New York followed up around a couple days after that. And, Montana, even Montana shut down, if you can believe that. And so I think, our first vote was very much in line. I think we did the right thing, and I will stand by that vote to the day I die because I had to. I just felt like this was going to be something that exploded in our face, and we had to be prepared for it. And then the mayor suggested, and as other people's experts were saying, you don't just turn the faucet right back on, you don't go right back to it. So we opened the faucet a little bit back in April 28th, I believe it was. We kind of let people start, getting used to the idea of social distancing. We're hoping the idea being to install those rules, and everybody had to follow them, not just the people that were shut down. And, we always had this goal of, always our goal was, at least in my mind, the metric was, can the hospital handle it? Can the healthcare system handle it? Well, we've given them a lot of time to prepare at this point. And I say this fully aware that, like I said, I have 2 family members that have it, and I have many friends in the healthcare system. And they've gone out and they've built, I think it's 170 overflow beds. If someone corrects me on that, I'm wrong, but I believe that's what the number is. We got the temporary shelter put in for our most vulnerable people of our population. Awate has rented out an entire hotel to allow people to recover. So it seems like we've done a pretty good job of preparing for it as best as we can. As everybody knows, if we shut the entire country down for a month when we first started, maybe we wouldn't have to deal with this, but it's not going away. It's here, and it's going to get worse again, and it'll come back. It's just the history of viruses. That's what they do. And the second wave will probably hit us, September, October. I'm not an epidemiologist, but everybody else seems to be these days, so I'll throw my hat in the ring. And, the fact of the matter is, though, we do have to learn to live with it, and somehow I don't know what that solution is, but I know we can't all hide forever. I've got parents that are, obviously older, immune compromised, one of them, doing their best to keep them at home, but the fact of the matter is they're the people that want to go out the most. So I think they probably just figured, I've lived this long and I'm not going to hide anymore. And, I appreciate all that. I mean, for me, it's just, we can't be shut down forever. I really, really don't want to just, say go for it, because I think that's irresponsible on a lot of levels, but at the same time, what do you do? I mean, you can't just sit there and hide. You've got to, like I said, Mr. Evans said, masks. Wear them. If you go in someplace that's in the public, indoors especially, wear a mask. I'm not wearing right now, so you can understand me, which probably you'd rather not at some point, but the fact of the matter is these do work, But the hospital's had its time to prepare. We've done our best. The tourists are here, and you go around town, they're everywhere. I mean, and you step 2 minutes outside the Rapid City and everything's open. So to think that we're, like a little boy holding the water and holding the dike closed with our finger, I mean, that's what we're essentially doing at this point. I don't think we're going to really affect much at this point anymore. I think it's just, as Laura pointed out, it's really something the government tries to do. We try to lead by example, but you have to be honest with people. And if you're in the position, this position which you folks are going to be in, obviously I didn't do the right vote, so I'm not here anymore. But but the fact of the matter is honesty is the most important thing we can do as leaders. And we have to be honest when we say that, hey, we've done our best. We've given the hospitals the best amount of time we can. And at this point, you're going to have to really think about your own health and take responsibility for it. And I hate to say that because the government's job is to try to protect you as much as possible. But when it comes to a virus, there's only so much we can do, folks. We cannot forever protect you. We did our best. Our best, I think, was pretty good. I think, like I said, talk to Monument all the time, and they seem to be prepared. If you look at the numbers of people that are actually in the hospital right now, it's not really catastrophically high. The projections are that it's going to get worse. So I would definitely, say practice what is the safest, but I don't think we can stop it anymore, and I know we can't. I mean, just that's the history of viruses. They couldn't stop it in 1918, and we're not going to stop it now. So all we can do is just prepare for it the best we can, and I think we've done that. I don't want to say this is the green light to go do whatever you want. That seems kind of silly, but like I said, I will be supporting this motion to go forward, and I do respect the businesses that are here. I'm watching. I know 3 of the business owners sitting in this place really pretty well. They've all done a really good job of complying to this point, and I do appreciate their patience with the city, and they're keeping the best interest of the public in it, going. I know there's a lot of businesses that aren't complying right now, but these 3 that I see right now, Colonial House, Millstone, Firehouse, I called them all out because they're sitting there, have done a great job. So anyway, I appreciate everybody's support and understanding, and I will yield.
Okay, we're back to the original motion, which is to pass the alternative resolution that is on the agenda. Anybody have any questions about that? Any further comments? If not, we'll go to a roll call vote on item 43.
Evans? Drew? Nordstrom?
No.
Roberts? Strobel? Armstrong? Lewis? Lehman? Drury?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. On to community development items, number 44, request by KTM Design Solutions for Yasmin Dream 11 LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 2 through 28 of Block 3, lots 2 through 11 of Block 4, lots 1 through 16 of Block 7 of Diamond Ridge subdivision, generally described as being located north of Diamond Ridge subdivision. Motion to approve by Roberts. Second by Nordstrom. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under bid awards, number 45, acknowledge receipt of bids for Fitzgerald Stadium renovation, project number 19-2508, opened on May 26, 2020. Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting this project tonight. I had spoke out against it previously, but reconsidered because it is vision money and should never be commingled with the general fund. And if I was the person that was receiving vision money for a project that I planned for years, and I was at one time with the Doll. I worked at the Doll Arts Center when we went through this process. And so in reconsidering, I can say yes because I think it's the right thing to do. We said that we'd give them the vision funds. Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay, Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Rod Johnson a question or two?
Please.
Great. Where you're going to the lectern, Mr. Johnson, tonight, are you just asking for the original $5 million that was to go to Fitzgerald Stadium, nothing above and beyond that?
Right. What we're asking for is to award the base bid, which was $4,950,000 minus the negotiated value engineering in the amount of $557,600. So for a total award of $4,392,400. And that amount is, if you look at the renovation budget, that amount does not exceed, along with other fees and expenses, that amount does not exceed the $5 million. So we're not asking for any additional funds from the city or from the Vision Fund.
Okay, so if there were other things that, for example, they wanted in place that aren't in this budget, they would be responsible for those items.
That's correct. In fact, and again, if you look at that budget, one thing that we have done is, and this was done actually that way from the beginning, but we actually took the turf installation itself out of the contract that we're asking for award. So that turf contract would happen sometime around the beginning of the year, and depending upon how we do with our contingency, you'll notice that we have 4% contingency in our budget. Some of that money could be used for that turf. The rest of it would be funded by Black Hills Sports.
Okay, so just so the public is aware, this is a different bucket of money, to use one of Richie's analogies. It does not come out of the general fund. This is Vision Fund money that was voted on earlier and awarded. So I am fine with this, is to go forward as long as they are not asking for more than what was awarded during the Vision Fund process. I yield. Oh, did you have, go ahead.
Just to make, I just wanted to comment that, Lyle Tolsma spoke earlier on behalf of Black Hills Sports. We also have Pat Hall as a member of that, of that organization that are here tonight regarding this item.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
Bill Evans.
I was the one that originally proposed we delay this until a later date simply because we don't know where the money is going to be. And we've had countless hospitality people sit right here and say they don't have any business. And yet that vision fund is paid through taxes on the hospitality industry. Is that correct? I think so. Where does it come from?
It comes from our general sales tax. So that 2% general sales tax, 1% goes to the general fund, and the other 1% is split between the CIP fund and the vision fund. So it's
on a half-cent sales tax.
42% of, so 42 cents out of a penny they get.
Okay, I was just trying to get some clarity on that.
I can't remember. It's split like 21% and 29% goes to the CIP to make up that full second percent.
Okay. Well, again, I love going to baseball games. I love going to Haymarket Park in Lincoln. I go to Minnesota with my brother. I go to the games in Omaha and everything, and I love going here, and I have for years. However, I don't think it's the time to be starting this project because this is a want, not a need for now. And until we see where this is ending up and whether or not we're going to layoffs in city workers and everything else over the next, we don't know where this is going. I just think it's an ill-timed expense. So I'm going to, again, vote against it, although I support the project 1,000,000%. I want to see it done eventually, just not right now. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Is Mr. Tolsma here? Is he still? Yes, Larry, could you come up to the podium? And then Pat Hall, I'll have some question for you. But Larry, the question I've got right now for you, let me take this off. Right now I've got a question for you on the meeting that you had at noon today. This was part of your discussion at your sports...
Black Hills Sports.
Black Hills Sports, yes, board meeting. Can you tell us what was discussed and how the vote came out on that?
It was a unanimous vote by everybody that was there, present, and it was just to go here and thank the Vision Fund Board and the mayor and the city council members, and we support the decision to go forward at this time.
Thank you. And part of that discussion, and maybe even previous discussions, is that was there any issues raised about the concern of losing this Vision Fund money?
We had that concern. That was one of our concerns. But again, we were assured that it was that was not going to happen. So we don't know. That's not our decision, but that was one of our concerns, yes.
Okay, because I was hearing a little bit about the concern, and I wouldn't support that. Originally, I wasn't in favor of this because of the diversity of this. So if I can ask Pat Hall a question. Next. And while Mr. Hall is coming to the podium, I just wanted to thank him for telling me about what the Black Hills Sports was all about and what this field was going to be doing, because I was concerned about the diversity of the field and how it was going to be used. And you explained it and brought people forward to tell me a little bit about what you're planning to do with that facility. You and I talked a little bit about something called manager at risk. Do you fully understand that this money that we're coming up with, the vision funds, does not include a manager at risk?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but
sure.
Would you say that again?
Yeah, you and I discussed something called a manager at risk.
Right.
I believe that's the title you used. Do you understand that we can't do that through our vision fund process the way it's set up right now? Okay. Yeah, and that's the way it's set up right now, right? Okay, well, for the Civic Center. I'm sorry. Yeah, thanks for the clarification. But that was not our original intent, though, right? It was that okay. So that it wasn't our original intent to offer up part of our bid proposal to do a manager at risk. But I just wanted to thank you for making that facility available so that I could get a clearer understanding of what is to be taking place, what is going to be processed out there in this project. And I want to thank you very much for putting everything together for that demonstration and the tour that you gave me. So
Well, I think we've enjoyed working together with the city, and you know, the one thing we don't want to have happen is lose the money.
Yep,
That's a major concern. I've been on this board for longer than probably I want to admit, something like maybe 50 years. And so the only thing I look at is the board is there to protect the city's interest. Rod's there to protect the city's interest. We want to get this ballpark done. We just like to get as good a job done for the city as we can. Thank you.
Pat, just primarily because of you and your effort, second efforts, maybe even third efforts, of visiting with me and taking the time to visit with me and explain this, I'm very comfortable with about moving this project forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, two things. I'm not sure we have a motion on this item yet, correct? Okay, motion to correct by Lewis and a second by Drury. And the second thing is, the wording on this agenda item is to acknowledge receipt of the bids. And I think in reality, don't we intend to have it say we approve or accept the bid?
Yes, yes, accept the bid as modified, as recommended in the recommendation that was provided on Friday. And if I can just give a little explanation of that, these...
Second.
That was a motion.
That was the motion, and the seconder? Okay. All right, go ahead.
These, this paperwork, you know, that we have to get to the city council has to come out midweek. Since this bid was open for the last 20 days, we have been working on the, you know, it's a sheet that was provided in there, the value engineering adjustments, and, you know, we finally were able to meet with their board on Thursday, go through them, and finalize it on Friday. So we put out our final recommendation, our revised recommendation, actually after the agenda item was included on the agenda. So that's the difference.
Okay. Okay. John Roberts.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Joel Landine a question real quick?
Please.
Joel, legally, can we make a change that large without noticing it to the public? Because there's a huge difference between acknowledging receipt and, you know, asking for the funds to be appropriated right now. This does not give the public any opportunity to come in.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, the purpose of the public agenda is to put public on notice. There was clearly bids received. I can't speak to the wording as far as I understand. It wasn't clear whether they were going to recommend award. Traditionally, I think probably the confusion is that Public Works, normally the bids come in, they're within, and so they either recommend awarding or recommend denial. So really that shows the recommendation. But no matter what, you always have the ability to either award, find new funds and award it, or to deny the bid. And I think, I'm guessing from what Rod said, that the discussion heading into the week was they weren't sure whether they were going to be able to get the bid into a place where it was within the budget and they could award it. So I think it put people on notice. I guess I'm not overly concerned about any legal challenges. People should have seen that the discussion about whether or not the bids on the stadium were on the agenda and could have shown up.
Thank you, Joel, but you're rambling and you're taking all my time, so no offense. I mean, I just want a little bit of time. Rod, can I ask you a question real quick?
Sure.
So we were having a little bit of a discussion here with Richie about contractor at risk. Why was that not an option brought forward on this?
There was discussion about that early on, probably about a year ago, or very early on in the process, and what we ran into was a timing issue, and getting a final decision to this point, which is kind of the drop dead date as far as getting this awarded and into construction this year. In order to go through a construction manager at risk process, it requires quite a lengthy process through city government. There has to be a declaration as to why you would do that, what's beneficial to do that. Then you have to go through that, put together an RFP, put together a selection process, so on and so forth. We couldn't fit it into the schedule and make it
For
work.
this year?
Yes.
Now, if we move this off to next year, could we fit it into the schedule for next year?
Possibly. I'm not sure what benefit that would have.
I think there could be a tremendous amount of benefit with it. I think that if we had a contractor at risk that could work with the contractors, I mean, this is a fantastic project. I think there's a lot of people out there that would be willing to maybe donate some of their time, donate some of their money, we could possibly take, a $5 million project and make a $7 million project or an $8 million project out of it. I have concerns that we're shoving this through so quickly. I know that there's probably been some agreements that have been made with people, and that's unfortunate, but with the COVID-19 for the last 3 months, a lot of things changed. I don't think that we would really necessarily be tied into possibly some guarantees that people have made over this. I think this is a wonderful project. I support it 100%. I will always support it. I don't think that the Vision Fund money would ever be taken away from it. I believe that we can do better with this project. Mr. Hall, can I ask you a few questions? Out of everybody in this room, you've probably built millions and millions of dollars more than everybody else in this room combined. What's your opinion on moving this project and possibly looking at doing a contractor for risk for this project?
Well, the only advantage I see with the contractor for risk is that we can possibly get more for the money. And that's where I'm coming from. And what I mean by that is a couple of classic examples is when we started the program to get a contractor for risk, I suggested that we do that and that there would not be a lot of bidders on the project because it is a special type of project. You're not building a building, you're not building a house. We didn't all agree on that, so we went forward. Then, when we were adjusting the bid to try to get it in the budget, one of the suppliers said, hey, if somebody from Black Hills Sports will come and talk with us, we'll consider giving the brick to the project. That was the point of why I wanted to do this project, and if you remember, those council members that were around when I first spoke about it, is the objective was to get the community involved. This ballpark is an icon, and it's been around a long time. And there's a lot of people that want to help get this ballpark put together and get a good ballpark. The biggest fear that we have, though, again, I want to emphasize, is we don't want to lose the money.
And as long as I'm sitting on this council, I'll always fight to keep the Vision Fund money for this. My time's up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, well, vision money being taken away is certainly not unprecedented. That's why we don't have we currently do not have a field house in Rapid City, because it's been approved twice, and the money has been taken from it on 2 different occasions, and so it's never been built, and actually it would be a vital part of our pool structure, because we'd be doing a recapture rate of something like 70-some%, which would actually allow us to operate the pools a lot cheaper for a lot more people. However, and I think we took that money and we built the Horseman pool, which came in at $4.5 million originally and ended up costing about $8.2 million, if memory serves me, 8.1, somewhere around there. So money that, we say is going to be there is not guaranteed by any stretch of the imagination. So I think it's, and to wait longer for this project, I think is, right now, oil prices are very low. They've gone up a little bit lately, but extremely low. Supplies are, probably down. I don't see them going down in a year, the cost of the materials. The Vision Committee did vet this quite, a lot 2 years ago. We put together 15 different citizens, I believe it was, that vetted this whole thing. They brought it forth to us. It was vetted further by the council, voted on, we approved it, along with all the other projects that have been approved and funded. So I just think that we should, keep on with the things we've said we're going to do. It's not unheard of to do these things, and just because we're in a crisis this is, once again, much like the landfill, this is not property taxes. This is a different fund, a different bucket, as Mr. Ray just said. This is money that's been allocated for these kind of projects, and so we can't just take it out and put it towards anything else without an ordinance change. And if you start messing with the Vision Fund, this council will be just as full as it is right now, because people tend to support that fund pretty strongly. It's been something that's been very vital to the growth of our community and the quality of life of our community. So I think we don't want to sit here and micromanage and second guess our own decisions we made as a body 2 years ago. And once again, we had it vetted by a committee that brought forth all these, and they went through those different projects, and they brought this one forth as one of the ones they recommended. So I think we need to hold true to that. And because when people bring forth these commissions, whatever, these projects, they need to know that they're going to go forward, and we're not going to decide a year later, oh, can't do it. Like I said, the money's there. This money's not going towards anything else at this point, and it certainly can't go towards education or health care. For those of you who've been writing those emails, you need to learn your funding sources. Thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. I have some questions and need some clarification. I usually rely on Mr. Roberts and Mr. Lewis for contracting projects, so I'm grateful that I have them as resources. I find it odd, we only had 2 bids. Don't we get more usually with big projects like this? No?
We certainly would have liked to have seen more, but I think, it's not uncommon to see 1, sometimes 2 bids.
Okay. And then the lowest bid was $700,000 more than we approved? Is that correct? So how does the board, is the board unanimous with this decision and thinks it's great? How are they going to handle that? I know I'm kind of jumping around. I really need clarification on this.
So let me just say, part of making up that $700,000 was the value engineering items that totaled just over $550,000. Okay, so then the rest of it would come through fundraising by Blackwell Sports, and I'll let Lyle address that.
I think
they're going to fundraise $150,000.
We're going to be maybe $300,000 to $400,000 short. When we started this, the project was the carpet would be the last thing.
So you're going to
that's what we've
fundraise
set
for
aside.
300?
Pardon me?
So you're planning on fundraising for $300,000 to $400,000?
We still hope to be able to save some money in the budget, but the answer to that would be yes, I guess. Wouldn't you say, Lyle?
Yeah, there is fundraising as well as we have several sponsors that have come forward that want to be a sponsor for for the turf, for instance. They want to give us an ample amount of money and funds to have their sponsorship on that turf. So we've got several sponsors out there that have come forward, again, like the guy with the bricks.
I'm really on the fence with this because I don't want to mess with the vision funds. That's a whole other can of worms. But I'm kind of gravitating to what Mr. Roberts said about maybe extending it for another year, the contractor at risk that you had mentioned. I hope I'm not the only one just swimming in this right now. Okay, I yield. Thanks.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have 4 points. I guess if this group wanted to do a contractor for risk, that should be up to them. That's nothing that was imposed on them at Vision Fund when we allowed that or when we awarded that. If they wanted to hold off on the project and do a contractor for risk, I think that should be their decision. We didn't do a contractor for risk with One Heart that I'm aware of, so that wasn't mandated at that time. And I think the best time to build it is this year because there aren't as many games and you have a more open season this year. So it seems to me that this would be the time to build is when there are less games, less activity on the fields. It's easier to grab another field in town to maybe borrow if you have something coming up. This would seem like the opportune time to build it because of the COVID and the lack of games that are going on. And we just need to remember that this is a different set of funding. This is like the enterprise fund. You can't move it over to general fund. And I did turn around and ask Ms. Sumption if the money's there. The $5 million is there. It's been awarded to them. We already awarded this to them. So I think we should honor our award and let them have it. And I would like to turn the rest of my time over to Ms. Sumption.
If I might, Mr. Mayor, I just want to touch on a couple things that Laura said. I talked to a contractor on Friday, and they said that they had contemplated bidding on this project because of the timeline from when they can start the project to when they have to be done for next year's practicing and season. It was too short, and that's typically when our bids come in higher is when there's some time restrictions on them, and so they chose not to put in a bid because of the timeline. So there might have been other contractors in the same boat. And then as far as the money is concerned, I can tell you, RJ and I have had multiple conversations where I have reiterated over and over and over again that there is no more than $5 million. And so that if there wasn't anything extra, that it would have to come from the Black Hill Sports or the Baseball Parents Inc. group. They would have to do some fundraising if they needed other components to this. So I feel pretty comfortable that between all of us, that they will not go over that $5 million that's been budgeted for their program.
Okay. Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. As a professional fundraiser, looking at this group over here, I have no doubt that they could raise $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 if they needed to. You know, it does sound like a lot to most folks, but it's done quite often here in the Black Hills. We've got generous community that will help folks, you know, sustain and build new projects. So I've got all the confidence in the world that if you need more money, you'll get it. So thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you. I'll make this real quick. First and foremost, thank you, Ms. Sumption, for clarifying that, because that's exactly what my concern was, that we were going to come back and you were going to ask for more money. And I think we're all pretty clear that that's not going to happen. Okay. Thank you, I yield.
And back to John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make a substitute motion to reject this bid and then go forward in the future at looking at a contractor for risk on this project.
One more time.
Time of the motion? Substitute motion to reject the bids and then look at bringing forward a contractor at risk for this project and rebidding it. Because Rod said it's going to take time to set this up as a contractor for risk.
That'd be a compromise.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'll take that substitute motion to deny and reformulate with talking construction manager at risk. Yes. Okay, but let's make this a little snappy. We don't all need to repeat everything we've just said for the last, couple hours. So that's substitute motion, and you got a second from Bill Evans. All right, Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to know the group over there that's whispering to each other, what do you think of that suggestion? Rod, I guess I'll pick on you since you are a city employee. What do you think of that? Denying this and starting all over it with a contractor for risk?
So again, I mean, essentially, the denial would basically push us out at least a year. So, I mean, we have something in front of us right now that can allow us to proceed. Our plan was to start July 15th and have this completed late May for the start of next season. That puts it a year out. The construction manager at risk part of it, I guess, initially it was turned down from a timing standpoint, and really a lot of the benefit of that construction manager at risk is having that contractor involved in the design process. That design is essentially already done, and furthermore, by our negotiation, the value engineering that we did, I think we've introduced really most of the benefit of what that construction manager at risk is. We still have the opportunity, to be able to look. It was brought up the idea of donated bricks. That came through our negotiation process. There's other items that where it could be done too, to possibly lower that dollar amount even more. So I think the benefits of the construction manager at risk, we have that benefit right now.
Well, I just have one final comment, and I'm sure I'm out of time, Mayor, but looking at who is on the team building this, it was already been stated, Mr. Hall has built more than anyone probably in Rapid City in the last umpteen years. What better wealth of knowledge do you have to go through? I don't think you need a contractor for risk. You already have an executive team there that can handle everything. So I yield. I will not support the contractor for risk.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And once again, I'd like to say this is another case where we've had something that's already been approved. We've approved it. It's been vetted numerous times by numerous different people. We got to quit doing this. I won't be here anymore, but going forward, you guys, when a vision committee brings forth a recommendation, we vote and approve it. We can't go back and change these things after they're already done. I mean, if we didn't have the money there, then yeah. But right now, and like you just said, Mr. Hall has done this for millions of dollars worth of work, and I'm sure I don't know your experience, sir, but he's sure he's not alone on that committee, and they will negotiate, and it's in their best interest to do so to get the most bang for their buck. So to come back and try to change this project for them now it just seems like we're going to screw the whole thing up. Who knows what's going to do the costs and the scope of the project, and we need to we said we're going to do it. Let's move on and just quit micromanaging everything that comes up to the board later and second guessing our own selves. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
I'm just going to say that I get a little tired of this assumption that the money is there, it's always going to be there, and we approved it, we're going ahead, because things change and we should be flexible and we should change along with them, frankly. And although I totally support this project, I wish we would have done it 20 years ago, considering the quality of baseball we've had, frankly. However, you know, these are public trust issues. And there's a lot of people mad about the Civic Center right now, and there's a lot of people that are going to be mad about this, because we're not reacting to the current situation and going ahead like it's business as usual. I want to be conservative. Maybe that's the reason my credit rating is 850. I believe in not spending money that I'm not sure is going to be there in 5 years, not today. Okay, that's me. So I'm going to continue to be conservative about these things when it comes to these votes, because the people out there remember and they also vote. And this is a time when I think you need to show that you care and you're tightening your belt and you're showing them, I can hold off on something I want because some of you people are suffering. That's my point with this. I think we have to be responsive to the population. So that's my last comment on that. Thank you.
Okay, motion on the floor to deny and bring back later with a construction manager at risk. Let's go to a vote on that. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Roll call.
Armstrong. Lewis. Lehman. Drury. Evans. Drew.
No.
Nordstrom.
No.
Roberts. Stroman. Motion fails. 4-5.
Okay, back to the original motion to approve. Take a vote on that. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes with 1 no from Evans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 46, approve 2020 retail malt beverage and farm wine renewals. There are 12 items on item 46, 12 licenses. None of them are of any particular concern to the police department, so I would take a motion on them. Motion to approve by Roberts, second by Lehman. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now on to public hearing items 47 through 51. There are no speaker requests for this. Consent public hearing 47 through 49. We have Pauline Sumption who wants to say something on item 47.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull this from consent due to the announcement that they're canceling the Summer Nights program this summer. I would like to withdraw their application and get authorization to give them a partial refund where we withhold any administrative costs that we've already incurred, but then give the rest back to them, being this was none of their doing.
Okay. Anybody want to pull any other items beside 47 on consent? Okay, then could I have a motion to approve consent with the exception of 47? So moved. Motion by Armstrong, second by Lewis. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 47, Rapid City Summer Nights for special event, on-sale malt beverage and on-sale wine retailer license for various dates in 2020. And Pauline is looking for a motion to
So moved.
Acknowledge the withdrawal and offer a refund.
Laura Armstrong makes that motion, and a second by Lance Lehman. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 50, under non-consent public hearing items, item 50, second reading. Ordinance 6421, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of Chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by City of Rapid City for a rezoning request from Office Commercial District to High Density Residential District for property generally described as being located at 706 South Street. Motion to approve by Drew. Second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 51, appeal of Planning Commission decision to deny on a request by Catherine Harris for a final plan development overlay to allow a mission in the general commercial district for property generally described as being located at 112 East North Street, and the Planning Commission recommendation was to deny. We'll go to Darla Drew.
Move to approve, if I could get a second. To approve, to not deny it, to approve it. Okay, thank
Hold
you.
it. Motion to
Approve.
uphold the denial or reverse the denial?
Reverse the denial.
Reverse the denial.
Is everybody still, okay? All right. The reason I'm speaking in favor of this particular mission is that I've heard from several people in the community that are saying that the Hope Center is overrun with people. They simply cannot handle all the people that they have right now. The mission is also at the end of their rope with, trying to handle all the people that they have right now. We need another center. This costs us nothing. And when I think of all the liquor licenses we just approved, I kind of think that, we allow a problem and no solution. We need more solutions. These people are not asking us for money. They have a building already. There are some concerns about the safety of the area that I find to be not defensible. I don't find these to be defensible. I'd like to ask one of the people from the mission, I think they're here tonight, to come up to the podium. Is that Eileen?
I'm Kathy.
Kathy? So Kathy, right now, you will open up just for one day, is that correct? Or for Sundays? Tell me what you're going to do.
Well, our plan is to have a conditional use permit to be able to feed inside the building, but with the COVID-19 pandemic that we're doing right now, we are just serving to-go meals out the back door. And we would like to be able to serve inside and serve every day.
From what I hear, there's some concerns about your proximity to the railroad tracks. That some people think that's a danger to your the populations you'll be working with. Can you explain to me? I think you've done some research on that, and that what was said about people dying on that track is just simply not true.
Right. We have, we believe that there's been some misinformation about people who have died on the tracks between our building at 112 East North and Omaha Street, that we have done as much research as possible with the police department, the railroad department, the sheriff's department, and we've not found any evidence to confirm that 2 people have actually been killed on the railroad track between 112 East North and Omaha. And so our proposal is to put a fence along the back of the property. The railroad track actually is approximately 50 feet from the building down a pretty steep embankment. And then when you hit the bottom of the embankment, then it's 15 feet back up onto the railroad tracks. And the part of the concern has been that people who are impaired that may be coming to the building for services would stumble down the hill and land on the railroad tracks and then be hit by a train. They'd have to have some pretty good momentum to go down the hill and then roll 15 feet back up onto the track. So, I mean, we're willing and able to install a fence from one end of our property all the way to the other end of the property to ensure that people are not falling down the hill from our property.
And I understand you're going to do a chain link fence, not a regular fence, so that you can see through it to see if there's any problems on the other side.
Absolutely. And like I said, the fencing would be approximately 50 feet above the railroad track, which at one point in time the railroad had concerns that it would obstruct the vision of the conductor. Well, first of all, trains pretty much drive themselves, and I don't think the conductor will even see the fence 50 feet above the tracks.
Okay, that's the end of my questions, and I'm willing to, overturn the denial. Thank you.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. Usually I take what the city recommends, and I also heard from the Cornerstone Mission, Habitat for Humanity, as well as the Planning Commission, all that were very concerned about these safety issues. But I commend these people for thinking outside the box. Kathy and I sat down a year and a half ago. We don't know each other well, but I know your heart. And I am willing to take a gamble on this. What Ms. Drew said about how this does not really affect the city right now, it's at your risk. I think it's great that you're thinking outside of the box. You want to do something with that property. It may even help revitalize that area. It might alleviate the Hope Center and the Cornerstone Mission. I think it goes against what I usually do, but talking with you ladies and seeing what you do in the community and the risks that you are taking, I want to support that. So I will support this. Thank you.
I'd like to give you just a little bit of history of what the RV ministry is about. We've been in the community for over 6 years, and we've been a 501c3 for 5 years. And we have successfully completed 18 people from the street out of homelessness with a zero budget, and listening to the discussion about the police department getting new cars to transport people. We are boots on the ground 24/7. We transport people in our vehicles all the time. We have people who call us in the middle of the night that need a ride from someplace. We are their friends. And for an example of that is, I'm sure you're all aware of the murder that was at the Palms last week. Harry Packy Black Bear was one of our best volunteers at the RV ministry, and we were the only people allowed at his funeral this past weekend that were not family. So that's the impact that we've had in this community with the homeless population. And like you said, Laura, we visited quite a while ago about some other things. But we have continued to be strong and have a presence in the community. We work with the Hope Center day and night. We would be opened during the hours that the Hope Center and other places are not available for meals, for resources, for a place to go. This isn't, I had heard some comments that people were concerned this would just be another homeless hangout place. Well, it's not going to be a homeless hangout place. People are already stepping up to the plate and taking the initiative to make sure that that building for them is kept clean. There is, if you drive by there, there's no garbage laying around. There's nobody leaving bottles and cans and trash laying around the building. Every day when I go up there, there is someone who is picking up garbage, because that's their building. They want that to be their building. They want to have ownership and take pride in what we have in the community. And it is a much needed resource. And we have been doing this, like I said, for 6 years with zero budget, no fancy cars, just whatever our cars are. And we have gotten 18 people out of homelessness that are still successful.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Kathy, for your presentation. I'd like to call upon Vicki Fisher or John Green if you'd give us some insights on why the Planning Commission made the decision that they did. Because I believe this is a good mission. However, the concern that I have reading your documents, this location is not suitable, and I'm very concerned about the safety. But please give us the rationale.
Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Please.
Staff could not agree more with the intent of what RV Ministries is proposing. Hats off to them. We've had ample opportunity to talk at length with Kathy, Eileen, and more recently Holly, and are so pleased with what they are wanting to do and are doing for our community. When they brought in the application, it was routed around the two major areas of concern were pedestrian safety and then the railroad. Harshly opposed this, and they were, those of you that watched the Planning Commission meeting showed up at that meeting. For pedestrian safety, we've got numerous things. We have 16,000 ADT a day that are going down East North Street at a speed of 35 miles per hour with curbside sidewalks. And we, during that reconstruction project with the state, have looked at trying to push that sidewalk further to the north to give more of a boulevard, but the topography didn't support it, and part of it was right up against the railroad property, so it pushed that sidewalk right up against the pavement. We looked at crosswalks. Would it make sense to try to put a crosswalk in? The city's traffic engineer said it doesn't, based on the slope of that street coming down with the curvature, both horizontal and vertical. A crosswalk could not safely be implemented where there would be ample visibility at 35 miles an hour to get people safely across at this location. The police department weighed in with the number of people that they, having established wonderful relationships with many of the homeless in our community, and knowing that several of them are impaired, didn't want us to approve a site that would encourage them to congregate for meals, social services, and it be unsafe for them to get there. The railroad, in their speaking, said that it's not just the fact that this is a use and whether or not there would be a footpath directly up to this property. They indicated that those that would be waiting for the service traditionally and throughout their experience, they will sleep and camp close to the facility wanting to get there in the morning, and that was their concern. So I think in summary, two issues: the railroad's opposition. We did have someone at Planning Commission that did attest to the two deaths, and I can appreciate that Kathy did research. I can only tell you what he said. And then, of course, what the state highway department, the city's engineering division and traffic engineer, and the police department said regarding pedestrian access.
Thank you, thank you, Vicki. John, you had some direct communications with the railroad folks, correct?
That is correct, yep. And they did indicate at the Planning Commission meeting that they did have 2 incidences of individuals struck. They did not define what that stretch of railroad was at the meeting, so that may be part of the confusion as well. They also indicated that they have opposition to any sort of barrier along that property as well, due to decrease in visibility, the potential for vandalism, and the fact that even if there is a fence along this property, individuals could be going around the fence and accessing the railroad tracks.
Thank you, John. With that, I'm very concerned about hearing from the professionals about what they have to say about what they've heard and what they acknowledged, and the concerns. And for me, the other additional concern is getting across East North Street, which is what, a 5-lane road, and we've had a number of people killed on 5-lane roads here within Rapid City, but attempting to do jaywalking. And I want to commend the police department for doing extra effort on curbing the jaywalking within the city, because I haven't heard anything for quite a while on the jaywalking. So, Chief, is there anything else that I should be aware of from the professional level? Because your department is also considered for. And I've got only 9 seconds for a response.
So it's just fundamentally unsafe location is really what the concern is. So if you separate the emotion from the logic, this is a very dangerous location for these services to be provided.
Thank you, Chief.
Bill Evans.
Well, I want to thank you for your work, because you're not only talking the talk, you're walking the walk. And I can tell that they have ownership in what they're doing here. And a lot of these problems are going to be taken care of simply because they are going to make it successful. I can tell by the passion in your voice. Some in my little bit of research I've been able to do on this, I found some of the alternate proposals, why wasn't it located here or there, and yet I find some of the same railroad problems, but for some reason They don't exist in those other locations. So I find that slightly disingenuous. And I am a little bit concerned with that curve and the safety issues. I'm totally opposed to these curbside sidewalks in general, especially on a high-speed thoroughfare. They're bad to begin with, but perhaps if we go ahead and approve this, we can do something about maybe putting in a pipe rail or something as it rounds the corner to make sure people don't fall into the traffic lane or slip on the ice or something. So maybe that would be a solution to some of those safety issues. So I'm going to support this, despite usually supporting our experts on it. Thank you. Only because I like what you're doing. Thank you.
Chad Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Will there be people occupying this facility nighttime for sleeping or 24 hours? Sure. I don't know who can answer that question for me, I guess.
My name is Holly Soper, and I'm the current president of the RV ministry. So can I, your question again?
Yes, ma'am. I was just curious, will this be like a 24/7 kind of visit? Will people sleeping there?
We did our business plan. That is far down the road. Right now, we just would like to serve meals. Every Sunday we serve right now from 7 to 10, and eventually we'd like to fill that void between the Hope Center and be serving meals every night.
Okay. So when you purchased this business, did you know you're going to have to get a variance from the city first?
The RV ministry did not purchase the building. We're giving use of the building,
Okay.
and no.
Okay.
I'm not aware that they. Okay, they did. Yep.
I'm
Yep,
sorry?
they knew they had to get a. We knew how to get a permit. Yes.
Okay, so
'Cause it's
they
a
didn't
soup
make that a
kitchen.
contingency on the purchase of the building? I mean, normally if you'd buy a building like that, knowing that you had to operate your business, you would have to, you put a contingency on the contract that says you have to get the permit before you can, close on the building. I mean, that just seems to me like standard practice. I wouldn't purchase this building unless I knew that I could do the business I want to do there first from the city. I'm just asking if that was, by all means, I'm sorry, I don't know.
This is a realtor. He can help with
Sure.
that question.
Who's your John, yeah, John.
Yeah, my name is John Brew from Keller Williams Commercial Real Estate, and I represented the RV ministry in helping them relocate from their current location, and also had this building listed, so I'm quite familiar with the building. And that was something that was discussed, and it was an option, but it was decided by the purchaser to not put in a contingency for the conditional use permit and just go ahead with the purchase of the building.
Okay.
But it was discussed.
So basically, it was just a risk that they're willing to take? No, I'm asking you, that was, because normally, ma'am, before you buy it, I mean, like, if I was going to put a,
Well, Chad, I just want to straighten it out for you.
no, I'm asking a question. So normally if I was going to buy a building that required a permit in order to operate a liquor license there, I'd make sure I could get that liquor license before
Well,
I'd
there's
open that
some
building.
there's some problems with the condition. There's a time frame. Maybe the seller would not have accepted a condition.
Well, that's
and so they
part of the
chose-
process, though, sir. As you
yeah,
well
I
know.
know,
You are
but-
very much aware of that, yes.
Yeah, but there's
Okay,
some
I
reasons
guarantee
why
you
they
by the
just
South Dakota state
continue.
law, real estate law, you are definitely responsible for that position. Yeah, that's your duty as a broker, is to represent and to make sure they're fully
Yep,
informed.
that was an option.
Yeah,
but it was
that
decided
guarantee you,
on
I
not
promise
to.
you, that's your position that you should have taken, that they can make sure they had a permit before they could buy the property.
Yep.
They could operate. Thank you.
Becky Drury.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask Ms. Fisher another question, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Fisher, are there any workarounds? Because we seem to have a lot of support for the mission, but not the location.
That is an absolute correct statement. A lot of support for RV Ministries. It's just the location. Our hats off for them for what they're proposing and doing for our community.
So there's no workarounds then?
Well,
Really?
okay, so if it is a desire of this city council to approve this planned development to allow a mission at this location as a conditional use, then we have brought with us hip pocket stipulations so they get approved what they need so they can operate legally. And if at that point, when you folks get to that, we would certainly quickly share with you what those are, and that could be a part of your consideration.
So would it be beneficial maybe could we postpone this till the July meeting so we can have a chance to review those, or?
It's so simple. If the mayor will allow me, it would give probably just a few seconds to go through them quickly.
Mayor? Is that okay?
Go ahead.
They're looking at coming up with stipulations of approval. So if you choose to approve this, we would ask that you grant the exception to reduce the parking requirement from 16 spaces to 5, that they work with the fire department to obtain the fire protection that's needed for the building, and that phase 3, that down the road operational plan that Holly referred to when they have lodging on site, that would require a major amendment because we'd want to look at what the sleeping quarters were. That triggers building and fire code. And that finally, that this be approved as per their operational plan. Because how they're proposing to operate is exactly what this community needs. It's only the location we have issue with. And that would be our recommendation if you choose to approve.
And since I have the floor, I can't make that motion, but I would encourage a fellow council person to make it, please. I yield.
I would also like to add that we would not encourage requiring the chain link fence. They would come around it on both ends. That would be an unnecessary expense.
Lance?
You're going to make the motion to approve with the stipulations Vicki just mentioned?
Okay, second by Armstrong then. Did I bump somebody out of the queue on accident? John Roberts.
Thank you very much. And I like the line of questioning Chad was going on here. You know, as a commercial realtor, you should know that it's pretty easy to put the condition on there that, you know, they can get, that they could get this conditional use permit. I don't like the walk around on this. I mean, as a realtor, it really bothers me that you didn't go forward and ask for that conditional permit before you purchase the property. You can have the property, you can do whatever you want to on the property, but coming afterwards and asking for that really, really bothers me. Now, I'm not saying I'm not going to vote for it. I just don't want realtors in this town making a habit out of that, because myself as a commercial realtor, I do this quite often where I have something that comes forward and they may not have the right zoning, they may not have the right, you know, so we have to make those conditions on that. I don't want to see a bunch of things happening in the future where people are buying up properties and saying, well, they did it, and they did it. And you know, we've done this twice in my memory since I've been on the council, this time, and then we did it one more time for a church out off of out by 44 and Catron. But anyway, we've done this 2 times. In my opinion, it's a very bad, it's a very, very bad thing for this council or any council to get into, where we're allowing people zoning, permits, occupations after the fact. That is something they should be asking for before they purchase a property. Can I ask you a question, Mr. Brew, since, you know, just a couple of realtors talking up here. Did you have both sides of this transaction?
Yes.
I know that that can become difficult because I do quite a few where I have both sides too. But why didn't you recommend, or you did recommend to them?
Yes, I did. I guess I'd like to correct that. As I stated before, the purchasers of the building were aware that they would need this. In fact, we've met with John and Vicki beforehand. I brought them down to the office, and they're totally aware of this, but had chosen to go on with the project without that being a condition. I know full well that could have been a condition of the contract, and it was chosen by the purchaser to go ahead anyway. So
okay.
They were aware of that. I'm sorry if that was a misunderstanding, but we'd visited about that, and I introduced them to John and Vicki before the project even got off the ground.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
I just don't want to sound like, I mean, Vicki and John have been very good to us, and we went to them with the realtor, and we thought we went in to find out, about occupancy, and they said, tell us what you're going to do, and then we can tell you the occupancy. And so the suggestion, they talked about the building, but nobody ever said anything about the street and the railroad. Nothing was ever mentioned. And we have to explain to you, we tried to rent affordable space in town here, but nobody wants the homeless coming and going. And then we tried to share with other nonprofits, and then you get into carpets, which we can't use with sausage and gravy and kids. And so we went to look at the Parkway laundromat. Right next to it was a space, and he said no homeless. And we turned around and saw this building that was brick, and it wasn't going to burn down, and a metal roof. And we thought, this is it. And we took John to the city, and they were very helpful, but did never mention that we were on a weird.
And which they won't until you get through the process. That's what I'm saying. As I'm saying, the process was circumvented here, and that's what really bothers me. I'm not saying that I'm going to vote against this project. I'm saying that I don't want to see this become a habit and this council be doing this willy-nilly in the future. Okay? That's all that I'm saying, and I will leave the floor. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Quick comment. Sometimes the benefits outweigh the risks. I think that this is one of those projects that I'm willing to take a bit of risk for the benefits that could come to this city. Thank you.
Okay, I have a couple questions for the group. On the operation hours, you said 7 to 10?
For Sunday mornings.
Well, what are your days and hours of operation?
Right now, we're just Sunday mornings from 7
When
to
you
8.
get in that building?
When we get in that building, we be Sundays from 7 to 10, serving biscuits and gravy, and then it's after the Hope Center during the week is closed at 4, so we would be 4 to 8, correct?
Sunday morning from 7 to 10?
Sunday mornings, we serve breakfast, which we've been doing for the past 6 years. We started in a camper over by Roosevelt Park, and then we moved to the Boys Club. Mark Klein and Doug Herman asked us if we'd like to use the Erickson building, and we were in there for about 3 years. And then when the Boys Club started their remodel in January, they said, we're really sorry, but you guys are going to have to go. And they allowed us to continue to use the gym. And that's when we went on a search for a building, for property, for lease, for rent, to borrow, to buy. And we found this building on East North. And there are no other buildings that will be affordable in that area to address the population of people that we are serving.
Hours of operation, Sunday morning, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m.
Yes. Well, we're there at 5. We're there at 5.
Hold on, time out. Weekdays? Which weekdays will you be open up there? Or what other days of the week?
Every day, we would be open every day. During the week, we would be open from 4 to 10 after the Hope Center closes. The Hope Center closes at 4, Monday through Thursday.
And so at 10 o'clock, where do your guests go?
Wherever they usually go.
We'll give them rides to Safe Bed. We give rides to Safe Bed. We give rides all over.
Apartments. Many of them live in the hotels down the street.
Okay.
We do this on a regular basis. And I'm going to say if we were asked, as our nonprofit was asked to be part of that community with the police department, which we were not, we would have been there because we do it every day anyway.
Understand, you do it every day for 3 hours on Sunday and 4,
we do it all day.
5 hours on.
We do it all day Sunday. Our actual, you're talking about our hours of operation on Sunday right now, is we serve breakfast from 7 to 10. But we get there at 5 o'clock to start getting stuff ready, and we have people there until noon that are helping clean up, helping take garbage out, needing a ride someplace. We also have furniture, clothes, hygiene products.
Yeah, I get that. Do you have a written plan of how you intend to operate?
Yes.
And
we have a business plan that's, yes, you should have that.
Because just a minute ago, you said you're going to be open weekdays 4 to 8 p.m. And then you said 4 to 10.
I screwed that up.
And you said Sundays 7 to 10, and then you
7 a.m.
said
to
all
10.
day Sunday.
No, we do things all day Sunday, is what she said. Our operational hours on Sundays are 7 to 10.
Right now.
You asked where our people go. after that.
This shouldn't be that hard. I'm trying to find out, if you get approval and you get into that building, how many hours on which days, what hours on which days will you be serving guests?
Here is our proposed schedule. Our proposed schedule right now is weekdays 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. After the Hope Center closes. We would be serving a dinner meal. On the weekends, we would be open from 7 to 7, Saturdays and Sundays, and holidays, so that people have a place to go to get a meal, to get out of the rain, to get out of the cold, when the library and the Hope Center are closed. So we would be open 7 days a week.
And can you tell me who purchased the building?
I purchased the building.
Okay. I don't think I'm making a mystery out of this. It's just this information is coming out in an awkward manner here. We're talking about a realtor and the person who purchased the building. And the hours have changed here with your testimony, and now you tell me you've purchased the building. So
I purchased the building under a LLC, James 2 LLC, as a independent for the use of the RV ministry.
okay, and how many guests do you have now at your current location?
Approximately 200 on Sunday morning.
And other days?
Just random, because we're not there every day right now, because we're not allowed to be there every day doing services, but we're at the building doing other things, and we have 10 to 20 guests that stop by regularly during the day.
Okay, thank you. Laura Armstrong.
Okay, so item 43, we don't want to tell people how to run their business, but we're having questions about how they're running their business. I'd just like to get this vote over and done with.
If you're asking about my questions, it's because we heard about the tremendous benefit to the Cornerstone and to the other and to the Hope Center. So, but that wasn't stated here, and so I just had basic questions about your hours of operation. I'm not telling anybody how to run your business. I had basic questions for you.
Okay, point taken. Thank you.
Okay, so that's all I have.
Mayor,
So-
can I just make a statement quickly?
Pardon me?
Can I just make a quick statement?
Sure.
I'd like to refer to what John stated earlier, as the government shouldn't dictate that businesses have the ability to run in a safe manner and entrust us to run in a safe manner. We are a nonprofit, we are a business, and I'm going to say the concern about the street on East North, I did talk to the state construction guy. Those are crosswalks there. We have been our crosswalking guards. We are out there, the peer pressure. We have gone from 18 jaywalkers down to 2 in 3 weeks. We continually educate our guests, and that is huge. The peer pressure of the other guests coming and yelling at them across the street, use the crosswalk, and they'll walk down and they use the crosswalk. That may not seem like a big victory to anyone who isn't sitting there, but as a concern of that safety, it is a victory. Like, things happen in life. Tragic things happen in life, and one of them is what happened to Packy last week. We can live in fear forever. We can live in fear forever. I can leave here tonight and get in a car crash and die. But the tragedy is, what if we do nothing? What if we do nothing for our homeless community? This is a need. We went to where the need was.
Okay.
And we will address whatever we need to keep our guests safe. The last thing we want to do is hurt our guests.
Yeah. All right, thank you. The motion on the floor is to reverse the Planning Commission's denial with stipulations that may have been mentioned here publicly by Vicki. You brought up all of the stipulations?
Mayor, I did, but the operational plan that was submitted with the application is a little different than what was cited tonight, and one of our stipulations was to approve per their operational plan. So I would probably recommend going with the one they stated tonight instead of one that was submitted in writing.
Okay. All right. Well, you got a motion on the floor, so let's vote on it. It's to approve with stipulations, or to reverse the denial with stipulations, okay? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. Roll call.
Lewis, Lehman, Drury, Evans, Drew,
Aye.
Nordstrom,
No.
Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong. Motion passes 5-4.
Okay, thank you. On to item 52, the bill list. We'll go to Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $4,890,392.10.
Motion approved by Nordstrom. Second by Drury. All in favor of approving the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn by Armstrong. Second. Second by Greg. All in favor, say aye. We're adjourned.